You're listening to the Plain Talking UK podcast, the UK-based podcast written by a passenger for anyone. And here are your hosts, Carlos Stebbings, Matt Smith and Neville Bounds.
Well, hello and welcome to episode number 182 of the On Time Plain Talking UK podcast. I'm Carl Stebbings, and joining me in the kitchen studio live tonight is my first co-host, Matt Smith. Hello,
what, as opposed
Matt?
to not live.
Well, as opposed to not live, yeah, I know. So, hello, Matt.
Hello.
Right.
How are you?
I'm good, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, had a good week?
Yeah, busy, very busy.
Good, well, we like a busy week. Busy weeks are good.
You had a good week?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I've been dodging rain showers mostly, but I don't think that's any
we've been doing that in the UK every day this week.
Absolutely, pretty much.
I think we can safely say summer is over.
Yeah, what was summer? Did we have one?
We had about 2 minutes.
Did we? Right. God, I must have been asleep for those 2
minutes. Some people say 2 weeks, but they're lying.
Oh, right, okay, fair enough.
And joining us live from across the pond, it's our illustrious second next co-host on the show.
Second next co-host?
You know what I mean. So welcome via Skype. Let's hope his internet is as good as Captain Al's was last week.
And not like Captain Pip's.
And not like
Not
Pip's,
Captain Pip.
yeah.
Oh, I've promoted him now. Sorry.
So welcome onto the show. It is our wonderful guest host, or host I should say, Mr. Sir Neville Bounds.
Yeah, hi, good evening everyone, and welcome from a very mild and sunny Washington DC. It's about 25 degrees outside and quite humid, but very pleasant. I'm here with my industry colleague, as I like to say, on one of our events, and flying back later on tonight. But you had a very full-on week, and glad that I could join everybody.
It's quite funny, actually, as it's so funny, because Carlos has just seen you for the first time, obviously in your full attire, sir. And of course, for those of you listening to the audio podcast, Nev is suited and booted. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He's putting the rest of us here to shame.
To shame. I feel really poorly dressed now.
Well,
Nev.
Standards have to be maintained.
Well, quite right. Absolutely. I think we should all wear shirt and tie, personally. But
and I have to say, Nev, your audio and your visual are all fives.
Well, of course,
well done.
absolutely.
Yeah. Even the standard regular guest internet here was about 5 meg down and 25 up. So that will do for me.
That's good.
Wow, yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, that is crazy.
Of course, nothing will beat that one that Al had the other week, because that was ridiculous.
100 meg down and 120 meg up. But we better stop talking about broadband speeds, otherwise I'll get told off. So a little bit of housekeeping. We are smack bang on time, so it is now 2 minutes past. Just gone 3 minutes past 6. We are an hour earlier than usual, but that's because somebody, our illustrious hero that is Sir Nev, has an aeroplane to catch. What time is the off, sir?
The flight is at 25 past 6 my time, and that gets me into Heathrow at about 6:45 tomorrow morning.
Lovely.
So, looking forward to that.
So, it's the 15th of September 2017, and so we do have a deadline to take, because we've only got Nev for a little while, I think we should bash on.
So before we start the show then, Nev, a quick taster on what we've got to look forward to for your segment this week. What's this week's segment?
This is with Andrew Smith, and Andrew's one of my industry colleagues, and he has flown extensively in the Far East, Middle East, Africa, the European continent, US, and has got a lot to say on the subject of airline service, or the lack of it
or the lack of it. Yes, I know, it's worrying. I mean, there's one or two that you throw in there where it's actually surprisingly favourable, but I must say the one thing I have learnt from these segments is standards on the hill seem to have dropped somewhat to what they used to be.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
But anyway.
So we're going to say a quick hello to everyone who's joined us live in the chat room tonight. Loads of names in there. They've all checked out, I tell you. They're there. So we're an hour early and they're all there. Yeah. Apart from Jennifer, obviously, because she's now going to go out and watch aircraft.
Well, I don't blame her for that. I don't mind being dumped, and I will take it personally as a dumping in the fact that she no longer loves us anymore.
And we've also got airshow royalty as well in the chat room. Rick Bell.
The legend, our Pittsburgh legend.
Our Pittsburgh legend that is Rich Bell.
Hello,
is
Sir
in
Rick.
the chat room.
I think we should make. Can you make people from the States sirs? I think we should. An honorary sir, I think that's the way forward.
Jennifer's put in the chat room, Carlos has been replaced with an evil Carlos. Fans of the original Star Trek will get it.
That is true. Yes, yes. I understand you're growing your beard for a bet.
Yeah, Gemma said that I wouldn't be able to to not shave and to grow this. So I said, I'm going to do it.
So, and how long do we have to put up with this hideous
this
facial growth?
What's this, a week and a half now?
Right, okay, so you've got to do it for a month, is it? I mean, normally people do it. Normally people grow beards and moustaches for like November, for raising money for charity, etc., etc. Have you ever grown a beard, Sir Nev?
No, I had a moustache when I was about 16, 17 years old, and it looked as though I was the sort of person that might appear in certain kinds of film.
Yeah, indeed. Was there a full mullet to go with it? I hope so.
Yes, there was. Absolutely, yeah. Glenn Hoddle style. Yeah.
I just keep thinking of Ron Jeremy.
Oh, stop it.
Anyway,
come on. We need to do some news.
Yes. So we are going to start the show then, as we do each week, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if you're ready, Matt.
Yes, I am. Yes.
And if you're ready, Nev.
Already here, sir.
Let's go. So, kicking off this week's first news story. This one is on thelocal.de. And the headline is, want to buy a bust German airline? And by bust, I mean one that's broken.
Not one of a certain figure. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Today is your last chance. So Friday today brings a moment of truth for bankrupt Air Berlin as a raucous bidding war closes that could see Germany's second largest airline broken down for parts amid wildcat strikes by pilots. Some 8,500 employees and 140 aircraft and a string of precious landing slots at German airports are in the sights of potential buyers who range from airline behemoth Lufthansa to upstart challengers like Austrian Formula One legend Niki Lauda. They have until actually midday today to submit their offers with concrete decisions expected from management no later than the 25th of September. Air Berlin carried 36 million passengers in 2016, but has long struggled for survival with booking losses amounting to 1.2 billion euros over the past 2 years. After main shareholder Etihad Airways withdrew its financial support in mid-August, the airline triggered bankruptcy proceedings and gave potential buyers a month to submit offers for its assets. Economy Minister Brigitte Ziebres declared that no one company will be able to buy Air Berlin for competition reasons. Good idea. Lufthansa, by far Germany's biggest carrier, appears hungry for Air Berlin's planes. It already leases 38 aircraft from its smaller competitor and could be interested in up to 90 according to media reports. But competitors in the bidding have accused Lufthansa of seeking a monopoly over the German skies. Michael O'Leary, outspoken chief executive of Ireland's no-frill carrier Ryanair, called a stormy Berlin press conference to denounce a German stitch-up in favour of Lufthansa. He told journalists he would not be joining the fray, although some analysts thought the wily businessman might be bluffing. Probably.
Possibly. Yeah,
meanwhile, Bavarian aviation investor Hans Rudolf Whirl has already published a 500 million euro offer to buy Air Berlin as a whole and invited his rivals to team up with him on the offer. And Austrian Formula One champion Niki Lauda announced a bid with Thomas Cook on Wednesday to buy 38 of Air Berlin's planes, along with those belonging to the airline's low-cost subsidiary that bears his first name. Press reports have pointed to more potential offers from EasyJet and also tourism operator TUI, or TUI, as well as Jonathan Pang, the Chinese owner of Parchim Cargo Airport in northeast Germany, and Utz Klaassen, the former head of German power supplier EnBW. Air Berlin's boss, Thomas Winkelmann, a former Lufthansa executive, has admitted to talks with around 10 potential investors even before the deadline passed, aiming to close a deal at the latest in September. It's Air Berlin, they're I used to see them quite frequently flying over here. They were a fairly busy airline.
Yeah.
It's always a shame with airlines do have issues like this, especially with the amount of employees. 8,500 people, that is a lot of
I can
employees.
understand their concern over what they call the monopolies thing, though, with one carrier I can understand their concern, but surely that's better than I don't know. Is it better that the airline goes bust? I don't know.
It's the slot thing. If one airline comes in and buys all the slots that Air Berlin had, all the airports around Europe, then that airline is going to have one heck of a monopoly over everyone else. So they're going to try and share them out between various people.
True.
Any thoughts, Nev?
Yeah, it was a very popular service, actually. I know quite a few people that used to take that service backwards and forwards, and within Germany and Switzerland as well. So I don't quite understand why it is gone the way it has, because I'm sure that they had the load factors to justify everything. So, but I don't know what the fares were. So again, if the fares weren't high enough, then that might have been a problem.
Is this one of these low-cost carrier, or is this like an ordinary airline that converted themselves into like a low-cost airline model? Because sometimes that's quite unsuccessful, isn't it? Where
they did start off more like a full service airline, and then obviously trying to compete with the low cost operators. But the cost base ends up being too high, of course.
Indeed, but we won't go over that too much, because obviously in Nev's passenger experience this week, a similar subject is somewhat alluded to, if my memory serves correctly. So
certainly, yeah,
absolutely.
So moving on to the next story, and Matt, this one is just for you.
Indeed,
and it's a good story, so don't get too upset.
Okay, all right. Ryanair, obviously, as always seems to be with Story 2. And this is on the independent.ie, so it's the Irish version of the Independent newspaper. And the headline is, Ryanair is hiring cabin crew. Here's how to apply and what you could potentially earn. Ryanair wants to carry 200 million passengers by year 2024, and it's searching for cabin crew to staff a growing fleet. Recruitment partner Dalmac is seeking to fill hundreds of positions, starting with open recruitment days in Dublin on September the 19th and October the 17th. Successful applicants must pay for their own training and work very hard, but they will also play very hard. Its website says, in what is not just a job, a lifestyle headline. And having spoken to many people who work as cabin crew, I think that statement is pretty fair. No previous cabin crew experience is required, but applicants need to fulfil several basic criteria according to the recruiters. They should be over 18 years of age, physically fit with a good attendance record in their current position, hardworking, flexible and willing to operate a shift roster, between 5'2", that's 1.57 metres, and 6'2", 1.88 metres in height, with weight in proportion. Of normal vision, contact lenses or conservative style glasses is acceptable. Able to swim, I think that's very important, at least 20 metres unaided. Hold a valid EU passport. Have the right to work in both the UK and Ireland. Fluent in English, both written and spoken. Ready to deal with customers in demanding situations. Friendly and outgoing with a fun personality. It is also an advantage, though not essential, to be experienced in dealing with the public and comfortable in a selling role. Now, that's interesting because quite often there's this conversation in the fact that cabin crew are not selling, and yet here in the Ryanair advert, they are more or less saying exactly that.
Yeah, it's a prerequisite, isn't it? Absolutely, yeah.
Well, yes, indeed. So, I mean, I won't go on too much, basically, but...
You've got to register for the course,
yeah,
so
€500. Yeah, it's not cheap. Yeah, so charges include a registration fee of €500 and a course fee of €2,399 if paid up front, or €2,999 deducted from salaries over an 11-month period. So it's not a cheap thing. However, I mean, I know to a lot of people this probably sounds horrific, but if you are very passionate about aviation, I do think, if you are able to do this, and of course, the only other side is you pay all that money and there's no guarantee that you qualify. There's no guarantee that you become cabin crew. But I mean, if you are serious about aviation, it's a great way, because let's be honest, if you can cope in a Ryanair environment, frankly, surely any other airline is going to be a doddle.
Yeah,
frankly.
I was going to say that.
It does say on the story that you could earn anything from €900 to €1,400 per month after taxes in your
and
first year at most bases.
That's not a great deal.
But if you're young, which most cabin crew are, I like to say.
Yes.
But if you're young and you're still, you've just left school, you're college or something like that, and you like aviation, and you're living at home, you've got no ties, no mortgages, no bills, no loans, then that's.
Yes, unfortunately, our only HarpJet representative, who would probably have several things to say on this particular news story, is currently in the air. No, he's currently in the air on his way back from Germany at the moment. Oh. So yes, he was going to be on the ground in time to watch, but unfortunately they were delayed. But we'll gloss over that. But maybe we'll get some comment later on, or perhaps in next week's.
Owen generally tends to listen to the show back each week.
Yeah, it's because he's usually because I'm making him edit it, so he's got no choice.
So moving on to the next story, and Nev, this is all for you.
Yeah, I was reading this story during this weekend. If you want an example of journalism and exaggeration gone mad, this is one.
Right.
It's,
goody.
It is, yes. And it's in the Express, and it says, British Airways flight to Athens takes 33 hours and 4 planes in embarrassing ordeal. British Airways passengers suffered a nightmare flight from London to Athens, which ended up taking 33 hours and 4 planes. BA has apologised to passengers who were caught up in the ordeal, which began on Tuesday last week.
Wow.
The flight time from London to Athens is less than 4 hours, but this journey lasted 8 times longer. A faulty cockpit warning light caused the first flight, due to depart at 1:15 p.m. to be cancelled at Heathrow, but this was just the first in a long line of problems for passengers. The second plane couldn't take off at its scheduled time of 5 p.m. because cabin crew had exceeded their working hours. Passenger Jeff Lai said the pilot told him it was the most embarrassing PA announcement he had made. After an hour on the plane due to security issues, passengers were allowed to disembark. BA gave them vouchers for a night stay in London before the travellers returned the next day to board another plane. This flight did depart at 1:40 p.m, but just moments later, the starboard engine caught fire.
Oh, no.
Mr. Lai told the Evening Standard, "We just took off and there was a bang, and it was the engine next to me. There was this huge noise and a judder, and then there were about 6 more bangs. It was one bang after the other." Well, it would be, wouldn't it? I'm an atheist, but even I was praying. Our hearts were racing. Passengers behind me said that they could see flames kicking out from the engine. I've never heard that expression before. Anyway, the pilots shut down the right engine and they made a return to Heathrow. Later that night at 7:40 p.m. on Wednesday, the fourth and final plane took off, bound for its destination. Passengers finally arrived in Athens early Thursday morning. Mr. Lai, a pensioner, why that's relevant, I don't know, said that he'd been loyally flying BA for nearly 40 years, but will now avoid the airline. He said there was no communication and it was unbelievable that they could get so much wrong. BA confirmed that 4 planes were involved in the 2-day ordeal. And a spokesman said following a technical fault with the aircraft, a replacement was provided, but after crew members went over their allocated working hours, the flight was night stopped. And the next day, the replacement aircraft returned to Heathrow after a technical fault, and another aircraft continued the journey to Athens. Our teams on the ground were trying their best to provide customers with as much info as they possibly could when they had it, and we fully appreciate how frustrating this experience has been and have apologised to our customers for the long delay to their flight. I only have one comment to make about that. It's just one of those things, bleep happens sometimes.
Yes, indeed,
and that's how it is. Everybody's safe, but it's very frustrating. And when the crew go out of hours as well, then obviously that's a safety concern and it's a legal issue as well.
It is.
So I think it's been slightly over-egged.
Really? That's shocking.
Shorty Crosgrove in the chat room has said that he hates it when engines catch fire.
I mean, certainly as a nervous flyer, he says, to require 4 flights. Bearing in mind that's obviously just going from was it from London to Athens, and it took 4 planes, and that's not in order to get home either. So there is every possibility that the same thing could happen on the way home.
It was just about off day. It was an off day.
I know. It's, as you say, they've got to err on the side of caution, and I can understand why lots of people were very frustrated. But as you can always rely on the British media for a very balanced, non-shocking headline or 12, yes, happy days.
So the next story is this one is on the EmiratesWoman.com website. Yes, I do find the wonderful websites around the globe. This one, we've been talking for the last few weeks about various different airlines' safety videos. And obviously we had that little piece that Captain Nick sent in a few weeks back about safety videos. And another airline, Etihad, has a super stylish new safety video. Yes. So if you've ever flown with Air New Zealand, you know that the airline safety videos don't have to be complete snooze fests. From Lord of the Rings inspired epics to celebrity cameos, the airline has a knack for grabbing passengers' attention. But now Abu Dhabi-based airline Etihad Airways has just launched its own creative offering, and we think it might be the most stylish safety video we've ever seen. So the airline has partnered with British designer Julian McDonald to create the video entitled Runway to Runway, which shows the parallels between the backstage of a high-end fashion show and the preparation that goes into ensuring a safe and comfortable flight. The video features more than 17 eye-catching couture outfits from the designer, modelled by WME and IMG models. But don't worry, it's not all style and no substance. The airline still manages to get its safety messages across. One model clicks a seatbelt over her designer dress as if the season's hottest accessory, while models getting their hair styled wear oxygen masks to avoid the cloud of hairspray. The new safety video will be available to watch on board from late autumn. And Etihad is a major supporter of the fashion industry, sponsoring 17 Fashion Week events around the world.
So a little treat for you then, boys and girls. Rather than you having to wait until when you are on said airline, we're going to play you a bit of the Etihad Airways Runway to Runway video right now.
Hello, and welcome on board. Please pay close attention to this important safety demonstration. Your seatbelt must be fastened whenever the seatbelt sign is lit. To adjust the belt, pull on the strap. To unfasten, simply lift the metal flap and pull apart. If emergency oxygen is required during the flight, oxygen masks will automatically drop down from the panel above you. To start the flow of oxygen, pull the mask firmly towards you. Place the mask over your nose and mouth and breathe normally. Slip the elastic band over your head. If required, it can be adjusted by pulling on the straps. Fit your own mask before helping others. There are 16 emergency exits on this aircraft, which are clearly marked. The arrows on the signs indicate the direction to the exits. Your nearest exit may be behind you. In an emergency, the floor path marking will guide you to the exits. Instructions on how to open the exit can be found on each exit.
I think we can safely say that is a rather interesting safety video.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was appalling, wasn't it?
It's. I think the best thing is like literally as you were saying when you were reading the story, it's like literally wearing the safety belt as like this year's latest accessory. And he says maybe being a little controversial here, I'd be quite happy to be the one fastening the belt.
Yeah, I would like that
for
job.
her.
Where is this going to go? This is, he's getting ridiculous now.
It's very, very similar in lots of ways, I think, actually, to the British Airways, the new one that we were talking, or it hasn't got so much got the celebrities and that, but was it Singapore Airlines that we did where it got the beautiful,
very nice one,
it had the beautiful views and stuff. I don't know. We're probably going to get another nasty message from Captain Nick now about this, but it's. I don't know. They are beautifully filmed. They are little mini films, aren't they? They're beautiful.
It must have cost a fortune to have shot this, actually.
Yeah.
It's very well done, but is it the right stuff to put out as a safety video? I don't know.
I think the jury's out on these things, isn't it? It's difficult to say. I suppose my worry is I wouldn't mind so much just watching it, but of course the issue is that this is instead of the cockpit demonstration, and I do still think that the cockpit demonstration, which I know we take the mickey out of the likes of EasyJet and Ryanair and all that kind of thing, but there is something very obvious about, it's very obvious to sit there, and you must... Hello, something's going on in the chat room, obviously. Go on, enlighten me.
David M in the chat room has said that our fashion show runway's dangerous. Also, Mike has said that he hates these silly videos that have nothing to do with safety. Yeah. And he also said, Micah says as well, that this it lures passengers into a feeling of such comfort that they have no idea what to do in case of a real emergency. Shorty apparently's got hairspray in his eyes.
Right.
It's okay, just pull down the mask. Shorty, just pull down the mask.
All will be fine. I presume you've got one dangling from your light fitting or something. But yes, it's I don't know. As I say, they're beautifully shot. I mean, I can't take that away from them. They look beautiful. But
do you remember, Nev, in the good old days of safety videos when they started to show actual safety videos, and I think it was Thompson back then had there was like a cartoon version they'd done. Yeah. It was kind of an overlaid cartoon of real people doing the safety video.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of all right, really. But this is just so far to the other end of the extreme of things. I just don't know how effective it's going to be, really, and whether people are going to take it all in.
And there is this possible subject, in a time where lots of cabin crew are going on strike and all that kind of thing because pay and working conditions are appalling. I mean, Nev and I both know how much it costs to do even the most simplest of production. So to do something of this glamorous nature, as Nev said earlier, I mean, the money that's been spent on this thing, I mean, could that not be better spent on customer service and looking after the cabin crew and all that kind of thing?
That has been mentioned in the chat room.
Has it? Right. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, we could go on and on.
I know. It just gets... I mean, you know what's going to happen next?
Yeah, there'll be another one in a minute.
No. We'll be in the Odeon cinema.
Right.
Watching a safety demonstration video.
Ooh,
it'll be nice. It'll be an epic production.
As long as it comes with free cheesy nachos and popcorn, I'm like well up for that. Anyway,
so moving on to the next
Seattle
story.
Times is the next story, and the headline is a Russian airline orders 6 777s, helping bridge Boeing's delivery gap. Boeing revealed that a new firm order for 6 777 passenger jets was placed by Aeroflot of Russia. The sale helps bridge the delivery gap between the current 777s and the forthcoming 777X. A day after Boeing Chief Executive Dennis Muhlenberg revealed a new order for 6 777-300 ERs that helps bridge the gap between the current 777s and the forthcoming 777X, the plane maker disclosed the buyer, Russian flagship airline Aeroflot. The purchase was approved on the 31st of August by Aeroflot's board. The airline said the jets will be delivered between the second quarter of 2018 and the first quarter of 2021. Muhlenberg said that Boeing had just a handful of 777 delivery slots still to fill in 2019. However, even as Boeing begins to introduce the 777X starting in 2020, it will also build some current model 777s for a couple of years until production of the newer model ramps up. Aeroflot said it plans to use the 777s for long-haul flights between Europe and Asia and to remote regions in Russia. So what was said in the chat room there, Carlos? I heard you laughing.
No. I was just reading the various comments that have been made about my facial hair, but that's not to do with the show.
Okay, not family friendly.
But getting back to the story in hand, okay. I see what this story is sort of kind of saying, that obviously with Boeing releasing the 777X soon, they obviously want to clear up the bits and bobs they've got left of the original 777, which makes sense, obviously. I think in when you're bringing out a brand new aircraft, you want to clear up all the the odds and ends.
Yes, okay.
The old stuff.
That's one way of looking at it. Yes.
Well, I'm looking forward to the 777X. I think it's going to be awesome. Okay. Because this is the 777 is in my top 5 favourite of aircraft.
There we are.
Yeah. There's also a great picture there actually on this story of the production plant at Everett's, the final assembly line, with the 777 fuselages there in the pre-painted green colour.
Very nice.
Which is quite
very nice.
Yeah. So moving on to the next story, and this one is for you, Nev.
Yeah, this is on the traveller.com.au website, and it says that Jetstar becomes the first Australian airline to offer Afterpay.
Do you know what? I can genuinely hear Grant McHerron sighing or screaming or something. I can genuinely hear because whenever you mention Jetstar, the stuff Tiger that comes out of his, or Tiger Air or any of those, the words that come out of his mouth are just anyway. So I look forward to the abusive email we'll receive perhaps later in the week.
Well, the story I think is phenomenal, and it says that travellers can pay for their flights in instalments.
What?
After Jetstar became the first Australian airline to sign up with payment platform Afterpay. Afterpay allows travellers to pay for flights in fortnightly instalments and can be used for domestic tickets priced between $200 and $1,000 Australian dollars, booked at least 8 weeks in advance, with a $10 service fee per transaction. And Jetstar Group Chief Executive Jane Herdlicker said that the payment service could be extended to international flights. Partnering with Afterpay gives our customers the option to lock in low fares at today's prices and pay over time, even during our sales, she said on Wednesday. And Afterpay co-founder Nick Molnar said that millennials are spending a growing slice of their disposable income on travel. There's been a clear shift in millennials' share of wallet towards the services industry, and more specifically travel, he said. Afterpay Touch shares soared after the deal was announced and were trading at 8.25% higher at 4.33 Australian dollars at 1300 hours. Shares in Qantas, which owns Jetstar Airways in Australia and New Zealand and partially owns the discount airline elsewhere, were trading 1.93% firmer at 5.81 Australian dollars. I just think this is another credit problem that's going to happen. I don't know what you guys think.
I did not know this was even a thing. I genuinely didn't realise that being able to sort of, have your airline tickets on the nod. I genuinely didn't realise that was a thing.
On the nod, Matt, explain that, please. Some people might know what on the nod
On the
means.
nod, sorry, like you're paying for, in instalments.
My parents would have said on the tick.
On the tick. Yes, that's another version. Yes, absolutely. It's I can understand. My issue with this is like, if say let's say Etihad, which we all acknowledge as a quality airline. Yeah, but it's like I'd be more interested in doing an on the nod for having a really, really nice experience. I quite happily pay, £100 a week for I don't know how long to experience like the ultimate flight. Well, this is it.
I think the residents.
This is kind of my point.
14 grand ain't get is one way.
Okay, all right, maybe not.
but you do get concierge service.
Okay. Your concierge service. What's that? Yeah. Your own butler?
You do.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Yeah, you get your own butler.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't know. I mean, if you had nothing else to spend your money on, you wanted to really treat yourself, and you didn't have 14 grand sitting around in the bank, and you thought, well, just once. But you've got to try.
But Jetstar is essentially the equivalent of our EasyJet and Ryanair, isn't it? So, I mean, with the greatest of respect, if you can't afford to fly with Ryanair and EasyJet, or in this case Jetstar, then maybe you shouldn't be considering travelling. He says
this would be no good for me. I'd rack up such a debt.
Yeah, well, this is it. You can get into some serious trouble very, very quickly, I would have thought.
Well, and I dare say it's a bit like one of these payday loan things that we have here in the UK. I mean, I don't suppose the interest rate is particularly favourable. I mean, they say it's only a £10 transaction fee involved, but, what's the interest rate on the actual flight?
And the damage it could do to your credit rating as well if you weren't prompt with the payments and all the rest of it. So your nice holiday just cost you a whole lot of trouble, I would have thought.
Actually, harking back to last week's show, Nev, Tony S is asking the chat room, Neville is looking very smart. Will you be turning left after boarding the plane?
Oh, very good.
I will be, because I have paid a few dollars to get seat 1A on my way back.
What's so special about
1A? Really?
What's 1A? What have I missed? Somebody needs to explain. What does that mean?
Is that on the internal flight?
I'm right at the front of the plane, on the left-hand side by the window.
Oh, I thought you were in the cockpit. Sorry.
No, that is 1A.
Yeah,
that is 1A. 1A and B. Yeah.
I wouldn't mind.
Well, no, indeed. Yes, absolutely. Jump seat privileges are clearly the way to go if you're Sir Nev, I think, anyway. Yeah.
See, that's what they need to do with this payday thing for the airlines. They need to have, if you want to sit on the jump seat,
turn it into
on the flight
an experience
deck,
day.
And an experience day. And, you could pay like $5,000 to sit on the jump seat of
right.
anything.
Okay.
Really.
Yeah.
I would definitely be in debt then.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Good. No.
We better move on before the wife comes home.
Absolutely. Yes. She's due any minute, and if she hears this conversation, all cards will be destroyed.
The joint account's going to take quite a hammering. Anyway, moving on to the next story, and this one is on the mtlblog.com, and it's good news for our Canadian listeners. Apparently, according to mtlblog.com, the Canadian airline are going to offer flights across Canada for $100. So hopping on a plane and travelling to another part of Canada is by no means cheap. Well, I don't know. We'll have to ask Liz. Flying with Canada or out of, for that matter, is incredibly expensive, but that could all change when Canada Jetlines, an airline founded on affordability, launches next year. So poised to start sending out flights by June 2018, Canada Jetlines promises flights from one end of Canada to the other for about $100. Canada Jetlines CEO Stan Gadek announced the company's air travel initiatives at a press conference in Toronto yesterday. Gadek said flights on Canada Jetliner will cost the price of a pair of jeans. Which is not exactly a specific metric. Who knows where this guy buys his jeans? But Gadek did follow up with a bit more info, saying that flights will generally be less than $100. Gadek also touched on the current prices for flights in Canada, which are incredibly high.
Are people spending more than $100 on their jeans then?
Is that wow. So the new low-cost airline...
I'll go to George of Asda for mine.
The new low-cost airline is planning to launch on June the 1st of next year, operating out of Hamilton and Waterloo. Thrifty Canadians can take an airplane ride to Halifax, Calgary, Winnipeg, or Edmonton and Vancouver. More flights and destinations are going to be added as time goes on, with Canada Jetlines aiming to have 6 planes in operation by the 6-month mark, heading out to international markets like Cancun and Florida. Canadians are at a disadvantage when it comes to domestic tourism. Visiting the West Coast or the Maritimes for Quebec or Ontario can be more expensive than flying internationally. So that's what most Canadians do when taking a trip or leaving our beautiful nation to head elsewhere, all because Canadian Airlines set their prices too high. Hopefully Canada Jetlines and other new low-cost airlines like Flair, originally New Leaf, will make flying far more affordable, pushing the major airlines like Air Canada and Air Transat to lower their prices. So this is good news then, I suppose, because Canada is probably a slightly larger country than the UK.
Just a tad, yes.
So it's going to cost a few quid to fly from one side to the other, but if you can do it for $100, I don't know what that is in today's current exchange rate for UK.
I don't know. There's no point in trying
Nev
to say.
Probably know.
Because by the time it's been released, thanks to Brexit and all sorts of things, by the time this has actually been released,
what's $100, Nev?
Well, I don't know what Canadian dollars is to the pound. I can't remember actually, but I think that it's good news though, isn't it, that they've expanding those sorts of routes and give people a lot more choice, and especially at sensible money as well. I think that's a very good thing to see.
And it's good to see that they'll be using a nice Boeing aircraft, so that's good on them.
Is that good?
Well, yes, because it is.
Is it? Okay.
So moving on then to the next story.
Airbus?
Swiftly?
No, we don't know. No,
on.
Okay, all right, okay, sorry, okay. So, the Post and Courier is the website, and the headline is Boeing closing in on 600. Are we just only advertising Boeing this week? Whatever. Boeing closing in on 600th Dreamliner delivery as North Charleston campus readies the 787-10. The Boeing company is about to hit another milestone for its 787 Dreamliner program, with the 600th twin-aisle commercial plane scheduled for delivery later this month. An unofficial production calendar for the aerospace giant shows September the 26th as the day landmark delivery will take place. But it's not clear who will get the plane. British Airways and Netherlands-based leasing firm AirCap are on schedule to take ownership ownership of planes that day. One of them will get number 599, and the other will get number 600. We probably won't know until later that day or the next day who gets plane number 600, said Dreamliner analyst Uresh Seth, who tracks production of the wide-body planes on All Things 787 website. That's certain. What's certain is that delivery will take place at the Everett Wash assembly plant rather than the North Charleston campus, according to Seth. And Boeing's North Charleston site has just one more delivery scheduled this month, a 787-9 to Air China on the September the 20th. The 600th delivery will come less than a year after Boeing bought its 500th Dreamliner to Colombian airline Avancia in December. That marked the shortest amount of time a wide-body program had taken to hit the 500 deliveries mark. The next milestone delivery for the North Charleston campus probably will happen in late November or early December, when the site turns over its 200th Dreamliner in an as yet unspecified customer. Or should I say, to an unspecified customer. I could go on, but
this the 600 would be interesting to see, because obviously it says in the story here that they're not sure who's going to get the 600th one. But generally, as a rule, when Boeing rolls out the 200th, 300th, a milestone one like this, the airline who has the aircraft generally gets to have that figure on the side, painted on the side of the aircraft.
Oh, I thought perhaps there'd be some kind of fancy should have been water but accidentally ends up being foam type of reception.
Hopefully not. I remember when Norwegian got their, I forget which one it was now. Norwegian had one of their aircraft specially painted with a number as well for the so many aircraft. I forget the number it was now, but have you seen these ones, Nev, that have got the numbers painted on the side?
Yeah, they do some special livery, don't they, for them, and very good indeed. They really look nice, don't they?
It's good.
Actually, it's worth just saying here in this story, it was saying the Dash 10 is being built exclusively by the North Charleston, in North Charleston, because its mid-body section is too large to transport by plane to the Everett plant. So it's obviously too big for that Dolphin thing.
No, that's the Airbus's Beluga.
Oh, is it? Oh dear. Oh, they definitely won't. They definitely won't be
flying on one of those. No.
No, I don't think they'll be doing that. Never mind. Sorry, that'll be special.
Boeing have the Dream Lifter. Which
really?
Is very nice.
Does that look like a dolphin too?
No, that's the Dream Lifter is based on the not the A300.
It's definitely not based. You're doing what I'm doing now.
I know it's based on the 747, isn't it, Nev?
I think it is.
The
747.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it'd be good to see that.
Well,
so
there we are.
Moving on to the next story.
Indeed.
And this one, I forget who's next now. Nev.
Just before I kick off with that, I've just noticed that one of my industry chums is in the chat room. Top creative director Graham English has made an appearance there.
Ooh.
So
hello,
green
Graham.
for you, Graham, and thanks for joining us.
There we are.
He's a very fine fella. He's done some very, very nice work indeed. And I might even give his website a bit of a promote.
When do we hear about his passenger experiences?
Oh, I'm sure next time I'm up in Salford, I shall bring my recording gear.
Excellent.
And Graham's flown a lot around the world. So
excellent.
So he's got
lovely.
He'll be a good critique.
Some stories to tell.
Yes, I bet he did. Yes, horrifying ones, no doubt. Yes.
Yeah. Well, this next story is from Wired.com, although I think it should be Weird.com.
But yes,
because it says that. It says that early next year, a Boeing 777 will take off from the company's airfield near Seattle with a laser shooting out of its nose.
I beg your pardon?
It may sound like a novel and grisly way to avoid bird strikes, but this isn't that kind of laser. Rather, it's part of a new system that Boeing hopes could spot brutal turbulence that can damage aircraft and toss passengers around the cabin, and give crews enough time to hunker down before the going gets tough. It says with modern passenger aircraft, whilst modern passenger aircraft can withstand even the bumpiest rides, turbulence remains dangerous for the people inside those planes. And according to the FAA, 44 people were severely injured by turbulence in 2016. And that doesn't count the less severe rocking and spilled drinks passengers endure on flights on a daily basis. Boeing thinks that a long-range LiDAR could be the answer. We expect to be able to spot clear air turbulence more than 60 seconds ahead of the aircraft, or about 17.5 kilometers, giving the crew enough time to secure the cabin and minimize the risk of injuries, said Stefan Bienz Bianski. I think that's how you pronounce his name. The Boeing program's lead investigator said. And the clear air turbulence is the sort that can strike without any visual warnings, like moving clouds. The LiDAR is the centerpiece of a new system developed by Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, which has been collaborating with Boeing since 2010 to configure it for use on commercial aircraft. It projects a laser in a steady ahead of the aircraft, whilst an optical sensor tracks the bits of light reflected back by dust particles along the path of the beam. Software analyzes the aircraft's velocity relative to the movement and velocities of particles at different distances. Significant changes in the velocity differentials, like pockets of air moving faster than the stuff around it, are signs of turbulence ahead. When the system detects those deltas, it will alert the flight crews through audible and visual cues integrated into the instrument panel. The specifics of how to deliver those alerts are still in development. Even if it doesn't give pilots enough time to steer around the threat, a 60-second warning could be a major improvement over conventional methods of turbulence detection, which rely on reports from aircraft flying the same routes and general precautions around active weather systems. At best, those systems can help pilots avoid turbulent areas, but not predict when the air gets choppy from one instant to the next. And systems that use radars to bounce radio waves off the water droplets don't work for spotting clear air turbulence. And with a minute's warnings, passengers could buckle up. Flight attendants could stow their coffee pots and take their own seats. So that's an interesting development. Although I did notice when I was coming across the North Atlantic on Tuesday, the slightest wobble on our 787, which was barely noticeable, and the seatbelt signs on, and then it stayed on for an hour. Now, I do concede that I don't have a weather radar in front of me, but I think the guys up front could have done a slightly better job of that. You know, that's how it is sometimes.
Perhaps they forgot. Perhaps they forgot.
I think they did. Yes.
Right. Yes, they've sort of forgotten that the air.
It's kind of story when you sort of read the headline. You kind of think of the the laser beam shooting laser beams. What is it? I forget the film now.
Oh, there's several. Gold Member, isn't it?
Beams,
yeah. It's Austin Powers is the film he's thinking of. Yes, that's it. Austin Powers. Yes, yeah. When you're busy firing, you're firing a laser. Yeah, absolutely. Sharks, isn't it? It's sharks in a tank with lasers. That's the one. Yeah. Absolutely. Anybody who's not seen that film, you need to see it because it's absolutely brilliant.
If this works, it'll be really good. I think being able to detect stuff like that. You know, there's new stuff coming on all the time. They're testing to try and predict obviously bad weather and stuff like that. It's a good idea, especially for people who are nervous flyers.
Yes, all right. Yes, that would be directed at me by any chance.
So next story.
Yes, next story, and this should be which Carlos is about to read in a moment. This should be your next target, by the way, because we've tried a couple of times to get hold of this particular individual.
I know, I do try.
Nev, this is your mission with this story to see if you can get an interview because the strapline is where air transport intelligence meets the passenger experience.
Yeah, it's Mary Kirby, and this one is on the Runway Girl Network.
No pressure, Nev. Yeah.
I've been trying to get Mary on the show for ages, honestly. So this one is, like I said, is on the Runway Girl Network, Mary Kirby's awesome site, and her headline on air: How Airbus is accommodating Qantas A380 refit. Now I've seen the pictures of these online over the last week or so, and some of the pictures which are coming online look quite nice actually. But very few aviation industry observers would have predicted Qantas to have selected Airbus as the overall partner for its 12 A380 aircraft, as the airline seeks to fully revamp the upper deck and perform a lighter refresh on the main deck. Airbus has been quietly looking to do more of this kind of refurbishment work for some time. It's interesting that Qantas, which has its own large maintenance, repair and overhaul operation for other aircraft in its fleet in Brisbane, as well as a much shorter route to the generally lower priced MRO operations in Asia, would select Airbus for this work. Airbus will be responsible for the overall upper deck integration. The airframer notes, and of this type work is likely a significant part of Qantas' selection of the original equipment manufacturer for the task. There will be they'll need a certain amount of certification and recertification during the process, and it takes a good amount of sense that Airbus is closely involved.
To RGN's knowledge, for example, this will be the first Airbus A380 cabin with the Thomson Aero Seating Vantage XL seat. Blimey, say that after a few beers. Qantas brands as its business suite, as well as the airline's premium economy seat, unveiled early this year and also produced by Thomson. It's not just seating either, and with the airline interiors industry not exactly showering itself in glory in the recent years with its ability to produce monuments and other cabin items to spec and on time, the move may well signify that airlines and indeed airframers have had enough. In addition, Airbus will develop a specific tailored monument for Qantas and a new and unique business lounge area in the forward upper deck. The airframer says the lounge work will be carried out in conjunction with Qantas designer David Cohen, who also collaborated with the airline on its present business and premium economy seating. Now, Matt was putting the pictures on the screen there as I was reading that there, and this is something that, unless you're incredibly rich or have many air miles, you probably will never get the chance to see. But the seats do look really good from Thomson actually on here.
They do actually.
Very comfy, I will say.
Certainly does.
Even the business class seats, lie flat ones, look quite nice with the dividing screens that come up in between.
Even the ordinary ones looked all right, to be honest. Like the premium Connery looked pretty fancy.
The Sean Connerys, yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
A premium economy, yes.
Oh, I see.
Yes. But
sorry,
no, it's
that.
I know. Having flown on one of Qantas's A380s, I will say it was nice. Their original cabin was good.
Yes.
The economy section was comfy.
Good. That's what we like to hear. So
next story.
The next
another
story.
Airbus story. This one.
Yes. Okay. This
especially for Nick.
Right. This is on the Composites Manufacturing website, and the headline is Airbus to test new laminar wing. What's a laminar wing? Will all become clear in a moment. On the A340, according to a report from Flight Global, Airbus will soon start flight testing an A340 that has been fitted with experimental laminar flow wing sections. The effort is part of a larger EU-funded technology project dubbed the Breakthrough Laminar Aircraft Demonstrator in Europe to assess the industrial feasibility of natural laminar flow wings on future aircraft. The Blade project represents the largest part of Airbus's estimated 330 million euro contribution to the EU's current Clean Sky 2 initiative, a multi-year program that includes other projects in advanced technology for more efficient aircraft engines, helicopters and onboard systems. Many modern aircraft, including the Boeing Dreamliner, feature hybrid laminar low flow wings which are artificially induced through hardware. According to Axel Flagg, who's the Senior Vice President of Research and Technology for Airbus's Commercial Aircraft Division, the benefits of the laminar airflow have been known for about 20 years but have never really been put into practice. He says that this is because it hasn't been possible to produce on industrial scale wings that are smooth enough to achieve a laminar airflow and aerodynamically robust enough to achieve the desired effect in daily airline operations. For laminar profiles, it is important that they are extremely smooth with precisely finished surfaces. This means building wings without rivets or other factors could disrupt this means that building wings without rivets or other factors that could disrupt the airflow. This reduces fuel consumption and CO2 emissions. Airbus has replaced the entire wing section of the A340 outside the outboard engines with a laminar flow section that has a different geometry. The wingtips have been fitted with pods containing sensors and video cameras. The attachment structure to the A340 existing wing has also been covered by fairings to accommodate further sensors and separate the air over the laminar flow section from that across the conventional wing. The new wing section contains no fuel system but is otherwise fully functional and includes the aircraft's two ailerons on each side. The interior structure is metallic, while the upper wing surface where the laminar flow is achieved is made from CFRP, whatever one of those is.
Reinforced fiberglass.
Right, okay. Different construction techniques were employed for the leading edge and upper wing skin to assess the feasibility of the different manufacturing approaches. On the port wing, the leading edge is integrated with the upper wing surface on a single D-nose carbon fibre panel provided by Saab, which is equipped with internal attachment points to avoid any external fasteners from the leading edge to just forward of the ailerons. On the starboard side, a metallic leading edge is joined with a carbon fibre upper wing surface supplied by GKN Aerospace. So there's a lot of things to get very confused in there. So basically, it's basically more streamlined. So there's no issues with that. So that could be quite interesting.
Yeah, I was looking up on the interweb about this laminar flow thing, because I wondered, what is this? I've heard of it, never really looked into it at all in great detail. But this laminar flow, if you imagine what a normal aircraft wing looks like and how the wing is designed for the airflow to go over, a laminar wing is designed in such a way that the airflow going over is less turbulent, so it's less what do you call it? It's less messed around with as it's flowing over. So it's, imagine an aircraft wing as being streamlined. A laminar wing is incredibly streamlined, so it cuts through the air a lot more efficiently. And obviously, when you've got a wing that cuts through the air a lot more efficiently, it's going to burn less fuel, and it will be a lot more, more fuel efficient for the aircraft.
Okay, so we have an example of this, which you've managed to find online, I think, haven't you?
This is the aircraft in question. So that's the Airbus A340, which is very well. It was the aircraft that Captain Nick flies actually for Acme Red. And if you look at the end of the wing, which you can see on the picture in front of us there, for those of you guys watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see. But on the end of the wing, you'll see this laminar flow wing, which has been added to the added to the end of the wing there, and it's so
is it like a fancy sharklet, but not?
No, it's just it's more, to put it in easy terms. It's an incredibly aerodynamic wing.
Right. Okay.
More aerodynamic
because there's no
than
rivets
standard
and all
wing.
that kind of thing. So it's completely.
It's a different shape as well. If you, for those of you in the world of Googled, if you Google laminar flow wing, you'll see that compared to a traditional aircraft wing, it is very, very different in shape.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So moving on. To the next story, and this one is. Let me bring the news stories up here.
This is with Sir Nev.
Yep.
And it's a top 10.
Oh dear, right, okay, he says so.
I hope you're ready, Matt.
I am, yes. But only
the music bed, as they say.
Here we go then,
So this top 10 is the top 10 longest flights in the world.
Okay, and at number 10, it's Dubai to Houston on Emirates.
So at number 9, it's the Doha to Los Angeles, Qatar Airways. And they launched their flights in January 2016, covering a distance of 13,367 kilometres.
What number are we up to?
Number 8 next.
Number 8, please, Nev. Sorry, I was a little distracted. Did that show us? Number 8, please, Nev.
Jeddah to Los Angeles, but on Saudi. Saudi Arabia's national carrier also makes the list with its LA offering, which is operated since March 2014. The flight uses the Boeing 777 and covers 13,381 kilometres in just over 16 hours.
Brand new and shiny at number 7.
Number 7, it's Dubai to Los Angeles, LA, with Emirates. So the journey from Dubai to LA is only slightly shorter at 13,414 miles.
We are almost halfway there. It is number 6.
At number 6, it's Abu Dhabi to Los Angeles on Etihad. Etihad's flight from the UAE to the US is the longest the Abu Dhabi-based airline offers, covering a distance of 13,473 kilometres in the Boeing 777. The airline has operated the flight, which takes just over 16 hours, since June 2014.
The desire there, every time you hear the word Abu Dhabi, is to just do some kind of Abu Dhabi do. The urge is just
make it a comedy moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, number 5.
Number 5, it's
San Francisco to Singapore with Singapore Airlines and United Airlines. Both Singapore Airlines and United Airlines offer non-stop flights between San Francisco and Singapore. United launched its Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner service in 2016. Singapore Airlines followed in October using the A350. The journey spans 13,572 miles.
We're nearly there. It is number 4.
Number 4 is Johannesburg to Atlanta on Delta Airlines, and the American carrier began operating its direct service to South Africa in June 2009 using the Boeing 777. The 13,581-kilometre flight clocks in at approximately 16 hours and 40 minutes.
It's the top 3. We're at number 3.
Number 3, Dallas to Sydney with Qantas. So Australia's national carrier launched its non-stop service to Texas in September 2014. The 13,800 kilometre mile journey takes 15 hours and 30 minutes in the A380.
It is almost at the top of the chart. It is our new entry at number 2.
Number 2 is Auckland to Dubai on Emirates, and the previous record holder, Emirates, has been operating the direct flight to New Zealand's largest city since March 2016. Using the Airbus A380, the flight covers 14,193 kilometres and takes just over 17 hours.
Finally, it's top of the pops. It is the number 1. It is
number 1, Auckland to Doha with Qatar, whatever you want to call it. It's the Q airline.
Now, don't we have it on good authority from Sir Grant of McCarran that it is Qatar?
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
So, Qatar Airways claimed the record for the world's longest flight when it launched its non-stop service to New Zealand in February. The long-range Boeing 777 covers 14,535 kilometres and crosses 10 time zones during the journey, which clocks in at around 17 hours and 30 minutes.
Wow. Gosh, that is a long flight, isn't it? Oh dear.
There we go.
And without doubt, not one for me. I've got to be honest.
17 hours 30
in
minutes.
An aluminium
Awesome.
tube is just
awesome.
My idea of a living hell.
Yeah, but
anyway.
their IFE is awesome, so it would be a good flight. You'd enjoy that.
Well, yeah, I dare say.
Don't forget, we've got the Perth to London flights coming up. That'll be a direct one, and then they're talking about 2022 non-stop flights between Sydney and London, which will cover 17,000 kilometres and take just over 20 hours if you can stomach it.
I mean, I could stomach it in business. I think we
could all stomach it in business.
Is it. Yeah, but
fair.
can you imagine in economy? I mean, it's just too long.
Honestly, all jokes aside, you do tend to find that even with a long haul airline such as Emirates, Qatar, or Etihad, the economy sections generally tend to have a little bit more legroom than normal. Standard airlines.
Yeah, all right then. Okay, so we're going to bash straight on then, guys. That is the end of the commercial section. We're going to move straight on to doing a spot of military. So if everybody is ready...
Yes.
Let's go. And the first news story then in the military segment for this week. We hadn't had one for ages.
Yes,
so,
that's usually Captain Al's fault. It's those dull grey things, as he always calls
And Jonathan
them.
Warner will be happy.
He
anyway.
will, yes, absolutely.
So the first news story this week then, it's Royal Air Force's website, this one. And the headline then, the Royal Air Force Hercules enables Royal Marines to deploy to Turk and Caicos Islands following the hurricanes. So Royal Air Force Hercules on the 11th of September flew into the Turks and Caicos Islands with a team of Royal Marines to the hurricane-stricken islands where Irma and obviously it's been really bad there. Let's be honest, it's been a real terrible time for those guys out there. So the C-130J was the first military aircraft to arrive in the Turks and Caicos Islands. It joins a fleet of Royal Air Force transport aircraft and nearly 700 military and specialist civilian personnel supporting the Department for International Aid with the delivery of humanitarian aid and disaster relief to the British overseas territories in the Caribbean. Since the 8th of September, the Royal Air Force has flown more than
20 sorties within the Caribbean, moving more than 700 passengers into and around the region and delivering more than 70 tons of freight to hurricane-stricken communities. This has included more than 20 Royal Marines from C Company 40 Commando who have deployed to support Her Majesty's Governor of the Turks and Caicos Islands, more than 200 Royal Marines from 40 Commando and 3 Commando Brigade who are supporting the urgent humanitarian work in the British Virgin Islands, and also 16 officers from the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service who are supporting the British Virgin Islands with policing. More than 50 officers from the UK's International Police Response Cadre who will be sworn in as British Virgin Island police officers to support the territory with community and public order policing. The Royal Air Force aircraft operating within the Caribbean are managed by 38 Expeditionary Air Wing, or the 38th Air Wing, based at a logistics hub in Barbados. The Air Wing is supported by elements of the Royal Air Force's mobility fleet, comprising of C-17 strategic lift aircraft, A400M Atlas, and C-130J Hercules aircraft, transport aircraft, and Voyager, the A330 MRTT as well, to carry passengers. More than 90 regular and reserve Royal Air Force personnel are assigned to 38 Air Wing, including logistics, RAF police administrative staff, engineers, operation personnel, principally from RAF Bryce Norton here in the UK and RAF Northolt. So it's good. I mean, the aid's getting out there. You know, our guys are.
But again, as you know, perhaps a little bit too late, as was alluded to in last week's show. Perhaps the response was a bit disappointing, but at least they're sort of on it now, and you know,
very much so.
Pretty much, good on. Getting there, absolutely. On to the next story. This is on the Flight Global website, and apparently this article will only be accessed by Flight Dashboard subscribers.
Okay, so the next story then, which Matt can't access, this one is on Flight Global. I'll read it again, don't panic.
Okay.
This one is good news for fans of the B-52, and Rolls-Royce offers BR-725 for B-52 re-engine effort. So Rolls-Royce is pitching the BR-725 for the US Air Force's B-52 bomber re-engine effort, though the service has yet to be established a program or record or release or requests for proposals. Momentum has increased on the engine replacement as more responses to the USAF's B-52H engine alternative study have poured in, says Tom Hartman, Rolls-Royce North America's Senior Vice President of Customer Business. Despite an accident in January that dropped one TF-33 engine from a bomber during the training mission, Rolls-Royce has no sense of when an RFP could drop or when the USAF could fit the engine replacement in its budget. And this is obviously the B-52 is we've seen one of these at Pittsburgh. We went underneath one at Pittsburgh.
We were,
some of the guys the team actually went inside the B-52 as well. And I think they've increased the length of service for this aircraft to another nearly 50 years. I think.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, something along those lines. And obviously the engine upgrade is something that this aircraft, the B-52, I think definitely needs. They say on the story here that the new engines could offer obviously a reduced number of refueling times it needs, and also provide a 34% improvement in fuel, which is also going to be good because the B-52 does have a lot of engines.
Well, yes, but I mean, it's a very old airframe, though. I mean, that's
incredibly
the crazy
old
thing. Yeah, absolutely,
incredibly old. So next story, Nev, or the last one in the list here.
Yeah, this is also on Flight Global, and it says the US Air Force awards Boeing a $600 million contract towards Air Force One. And the US Air Force awarded this contract to begin preliminary design work to modify two 747-8s to replace the Air Force One fleet, the service announces on the 13th of September. The contract modification includes incorporating the new presidential aircraft's mission communication system, electrical power upgrades, a medical facility, executive interior, self-defense system, and autonomous ground operations capability onto two Boeing 747-8s. The USAF will replace two 747-200 based VC-25As delivered in 1991 with two 747-8s originally built for Russian carrier Transaero, which filed for bankruptcy in 2015 before it could take delivery. Though that move has been touted by the White House as a cost-saving measure, the USAF and Boeing will continue looking for ways to shed costs during the preliminary design phase. following the award of the contract to purchase 2 commercial 747-8 aircraft. This contract award is the next major step towards ensuring an overall affordable program, says Presidential Airlift Recapitalisation Program Executive Officer Major General Duke Richardson in a statement this week. Can you imagine what his business card would look like with a title like that?
Yeah.
And it says the USAF expects to award the engineering, manufacturing and development contract by summer of 2018, and the contract will lead the program through aircraft modification, test and delivery, because those Dash 200s are getting on a bit.
Yeah. It's going to be really great to see what these the Dash 8s look like in the Air Force One colours for sure. But this is not going to be like a 2-minute thing. You know, the whole conversion process from turning these into passenger aircraft into what essentially is a flying command centre is something that's going to take a little while, I think.
No, indeed, this is it.
So, moving on then, Matt, to the... have we got to say goodbye to Nev?
Yeah, we have. Unfortunately, we've got to say goodbye to one of our co-hosts because he has an aeroplane that he needs to get on. And to be honest, I mean, if he's not there, then the lounge won't have all its goodies eaten. And there's no two ways about that. So we can't have them getting away with food going to good waste now, can we, Nev?
So
quite.
So before you go, Nev, what for all the stalkers out there, what are you flying home
for
on?
all the stalkers out there, that's horrible.
Hashtag awkward.
Yes, indeed.
I'm on United Airlines UA 918 from Washington Dulles to London Heathrow, which leaves Dulles at 18:25 local, and will get me to Heathrow at 7:15 tomorrow morning.
What's the aircraft of choice?
Just hope that the immigration process is a bit better than it was coming in.
Yes, indeed.
Disgraceful.
Are you dreaming?
That's on a Boeing 787-9. And it was very nice coming out. And that reduced cabin altitude, that's the first time I've experienced a flight on it. It really does make a difference.
I know. I tell you what, because you flew on something similar, didn't you, when you came back from...
Oh, yeah, I was on a Dash 9.
Yeah, he was on a Dash when he came back. And it was hilarious because he and I had basically both done exactly the same flight. And I looked like I'd been round the world 3 times in this crappy aircraft that I was stuck in and looked like death. And Carlos looked like he'd just flown to Edinburgh and back. It was just I'll tell you what, all jokes aside though, it's amazing how much, as Nev's saying it's amazing how much of a difference that slightly it's not much lower, is it? But it's a tiny bit lower. It makes a huge difference to the to your experience as a passenger. It's really good.
Yeah,
so
the air is certainly less dry, and it'll be interesting to see what it's like tomorrow morning, because obviously those overnight flights are always difficult when you land and you feel as though you want to go to bed, but you really should be awake. So looking forward to that. But they've done a great job on that, I must say, and I think that's going to be the future.
And which
airline
is this?
Of aircraft. This is with United.
With United? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they've done a nice job, and I think it'll be the future because I think as more and more aircraft are made out of composite materials, so they can actually do this lower passenger, lower cabin altitude. I think it'll be great, and that's exactly what people want if they're going to be doing that really ultra long haul stuff that we talked about earlier in the show.
Yeah.
My first Dreamliner experience, I have to say, was on the BA's Dash 9.
Oh, was it?
So, and that was very good. Just to make Nev feel better.
Indeed.
So we're gonna say a massive thank you, Nev, for you for joining us from across the pond today. I hope you have a safe journey home, and don't make too much of a mess of the IFE on the way back.
How rude. Oh dear.
But hope everyone has a nice weekend, and hope you have a nice rest of the show, guys, as well.
We will, Safe flights. And everybody say goodbye to Nev.
Everyone say goodbye.
Bye. Yes, guys. See you. Bye.
So first off, welcome on to the show back again. Pip, how are things with you? What have you been up to? Where you been? What have you been doing?
Very well. Thanks very much, guys. Yes, all well. I'm here, actually, in one of the most beautiful spots in all of Europe. It's a bit dark now, so I can't show you out the window, unfortunately, but I'm in Lugano in Switzerland.
Oh,
Switzerland.
Wow. Lovely.
I think it's Switzerland. It's right on the Swiss-Italian border.
Okay, we're not going down the route of pilots not knowing exactly where they are again, are we? like what happened last week.
Yeah, but it's a lovely, lovely airport to fly into. One of those mountainous alpine resorts.
Wow.
Great fun to fly into. Quite a steep approach and quite tricky. And the weather's a little bit naff today. Not ideal flying weather, but still acceptable. But it's beautiful. I might post a picture tomorrow of the lake and the mountains just outside me here. It's gorgeous.
Yep. What was the aircraft of choice today then, Pip?
Same as always, the lovely Hawker 800.
Oh, lovely.
Charlie Delta Romeo uniform today. It's probably one of the only 10 or 12 we've got left at the moment.
Ooh.
Wow. Yeah. So have you started your training on the replacement?
The Phenom.
That will be next month, 7th of October. I'm due to head out to Columbus, Ohio, to start 3 weeks of training.
Wow.
According to Lane Street in the chat room, he said that Pip he's obviously wearing his finest T-shirt to compete with Nev in his suit.
My uniform T-shirt, I'll have you know.
Absolutely.
Where is that Nev? Is he gone? He's not listening, is he?
No, he's
probably.
Gone.
Yeah, no,
he's probably listening, actually.
Yeah. He's supposed to be getting on an aeroplane, but he is prone to hanging around just in case we start misbehaving. Yeah. But, Pip, we welcome you for a very special event, really, because we're going to do something a bit different with your usual segment this evening.
We are. Well, it's a usual segment. The only difference is that I'm delivering it live right here to you, because I need a bit of audience participation for this one. So we need the chat room. So chat room, if you're listening, put your tea down, turn the telly off.
Concentrate, everyone.
Flush the loo, pull your trousers up, and come and pay attention for a couple of minutes, if you could, please.
We're into the Captain L realms all of a sudden. Yes. Indeed. So,
right, but I refuse to do this until I've heard that gorgeous voice introduce me, that sexy, silky smooth voice. You know the one, Carlos.
Plane safety from the flight deck with pilot Pip.
Oh, I need a moment now.
That's nice. I need to meet her, by the way. You need to set this up, Carl.
No. Right. Moving on.
Well, listen, we've got a very special segment. We're going to play a little game, first of all, before we get too far into it. So I'm going to need some audience participation. We've got a video to watch. Hopefully Matt's got the video ready to go.
I have.
Okay, you wait for it. Not yet. Okay, and, well, to be a pilot, a professional pilot, and lots of other professions as well, bus drivers and all sorts of things, you need to have a pretty good skill when it comes to concentration. You need to be able to concentrate and accurately analyze a changing situation. So we're going to play a little game to test to see how well you can concentrate on a task. So this is for you two boys there in the studio and for everyone in the chat room as well to play along. Now, if you're not watching this live, as most of you won't be, you're just listening to the podcast, you can still play this as well. Just Matt's going to put the link to the video in the show notes.
Yep.
So you can, in a second, pause the podcast, go and watch the video, then come back to us.
Okay.
And I will just say, if you've seen this video before and you know the answer to the quiz, then keep it to yourself. Let everyone else in the chat room have a crack at getting the right answer. Okay, just hold fire for a second if you already know the answer. So this is a test of your concentration, chat room. You're going to need to watch this video very closely, and I'm going to ask you for a number. Okay, what you're going to see is two teams of basketball players. You're going to have a team in black T-shirts, and you're going to have a team in white T-shirts, and they're both going to be passing a ball to each other. And it's very simple. All I want you to do is to tell me how many times the white team, the people in the white T-shirts, pass the ball to each other. Okay? So it moves quite quickly. They pass it at a reasonable speed, so you have to pay attention. Watch the video closely. And then I'll ask you at the end just to post a number in the chat room. Just tell me how many times the white team passes the ball to each other. Is that fairly straightforward for everyone?
Sounds good to me. So, okay, if everybody is watching, it's about 25 seconds long, and there is no sound with it. So I will, for the purposes of the audio version,
are you all ready in the chat room?
You two as well. I want an answer from you two.
Okay, all right. So we're all going to sit here. Everybody do something they don't normally do, which is maximise your YouTube window and put it on full screen. So we're going to play. So everybody concentrate. We're going to play the video for you right.
How many times does the white team pass the ball?
There we go. So that was all you got. How many passes did you count?
Well, Jeff.
Okay. Well, while we're waiting for the chat room to catch up with us, let's have your answer, Matthew. Did you count and did you have an answer?
I did. I do have an answer, and I went with 21.
21. Controversial.
Oh,
controversial.
Is it? Okay. All right. Okay.
Mr. Stebbings, did you have an answer?
Yeah.
Tell me.
I counted 13.
Did you?
13. Yeah. Okay, well, look, we're getting some answers from the chat room. Richard King says 15. Mark Collins says 14. Lane Street says 15. Jeff Felmuth, he's a bit of an expert. He says 15, as does Graham English. Jennifer got 13. Okay. Jeff Felmuth's author got 99, so I take that back. He's not an expert at all.
You can always rely on our chat room to really concentrate.
Any more answers from the chat room?
Any more answers coming in before we move on?
So, it seems to be 14 and 15. And did you say 23, Matt?
I did, yes, but then I'm not a pilot, so
doubly.
Okay. If you're right, I'm gonna kick you under the table.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, Mash already knows the video.
Yeah. Okay. So Mash is not allowed to play.
Okay, Mash. Yeah. So Mash is an expert. Well, listen. Before I tell you the correct answer,
okay,
I just want to talk about something else for a second, and that's task fixation. And this is a phenomenon identified a long time ago, all the way back to the Second World War. In fact, they used to call it target fixation, when a pilot, a fighter pilot or a bomber pilot, would become so engrossed in his target, staring at the target, so sort of tunnel visioned towards his target that he would just not see anything else going on around him. And often these guys would be so fixated on the target that they would actually crash into it.
Oh, wow.
And it happens in things like bike racing, motorbike racing. The racers are kind of so engrossed on what it is they're doing, they just tend to follow their gaze, and sometimes they'll just drive off the road and crash. And this has been identified in lots of different accidents, and we'll talk about that in a second. But it's just a human sort of precondition. You just become so focused on something, you're blind to everything else that's going on. So 23 we had 13s, we had 14s, we had 15s. Apart from Masha, who already knows the answer. Did anyone see anything other than a basketball being passed around in the chat room? Guys, did you see anything else? Don't say what.
No.
Did you see anything else? You didn't see anything?
I didn't see anything else being passed around.
Okay. Well, to tell you what, Matt, can we replay that video?
Yes, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
And this time, everybody, don't count. You don't need to concentrate. Just watch the video.
Okay.
And tell me if you see anything unusual. And I promise you this is the same video.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No way.
I didn't. That weren't in the first one.
I promise you, it's the same video.
I promise you, ladies and gentlemen, I only have one video loaded into my playout system here, and it is that one video.
Are you joking me?
No, I promise you, hand on heart, there is no trickery going on there. Pip sent me one video. I've played it out. Gemma can confirm she actually spotted it first time round. And I feel like a right moron now.
Well, Joe, because the first time I saw that in a training session many years ago, if you haven't seen it, if you watched the video a second time and you still didn't see it, well, there's no hope for you. But you can't help but fail to notice the large gorilla that walks across the screen, stops, casually waves to the camera and walks off again.
I mean, in the chat room,
so this is
in the chat room, Tony's saying that that's not the same video.
Yeah, I know.
I promise you, Tony, it's the same video.
Yeah, I promise you, on my vMix software here, I only have one video loaded, and that was the video that Pip sent to me this afternoon that I was told I wasn't allowed to watch. I just had to sort of include it into the playout system. And and Gemma probably wasn't counting. Yeah, that's probably because she wasn't. Oh, Gemma says she's seen the video before.
Now this is a well-known experiment. Actually, there's various variations on that, but it all demonstrates the same flaw, I suppose, in the way our brains work. That we just become fixated on this target, and it's a real danger for pilots as well and air crews. It's been the cause of several accidents. The reason I thought of this was because more recently we will remember the Air Canada incident just a month or two ago, where that aircraft almost landed on the taxiway
Yeah.
We've all been talking and debating and saying, how on earth was it possible? It must have been so obvious to these guys that they were not landing on the runway, that they were lined up with a taxiway. It was as plain as the nose on your face. But here it is. It's a great demonstration of how blind we can be once we've got a target in sight and we're committed. You could just be blind to all else. You could be, people waving at you and alarms going off, but when you're in the zone, you're going for it. And of course, the most famous example of this phenomenon was the Everglades crash. I forget the exact flight number now, but there was a Lockheed TriStar, I think it was, wasn't it, Carlos?
Yeah, the TriStar L1011. Yeah.
Yeah, they were faced with a really very minor and unimportant malfunction. They had a broken bulb essentially.
That was an undercarriage, light bulb. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a landing gear, like totally inconsequential. It wasn't a safety issue, but somehow it consumed the attention of all three people in the flight deck.
Yeah.
And they failed to notice that they were actually in a slow descent, and they just carried on down until they crashed into the Everglades without ever realizing what had happened, all because of a light bulb.
Yeah, that was Eastern Airlines 401, that was.
Okay, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, Eastern Airlines.
So, it could be equipment problems like that. It can just be getting mixed up with an abnormal situation. Maybe you've got a sick passenger, or you're having to run some sort of checklist and you just get caught up in the checklist. Or more rarely, it's this target fixation, which was more of a military pilot sort of problem. But certainly you could say it was target fixation for the Air Canada lot the other month. And, almost pilots are predisposed for this condition, because pilots generally, not exclusively, but they're generally sort of task-oriented people. Get my words out. They're used to completing tasks, and they're used to completing tasks successfully. So they don't like it when they've come up with something that they can't solve. They want to direct more attention to it until they can get the result they want, and it can lead them down this path. So there's all sorts of things you could do about it. Following SOPs, of course, is the number one thing. Having someone always flying the aircraft. Aviate, navigate, communicate, that golden rule. And it's something, it's such a basic core skill that gets drilled into us from day one. Fly the damn aircraft. But it's so easy to get sidetracked, and everyone wants to be helpful, and it's just too easy to direct your concentration elsewhere. And I think that video is just a wonderful demonstration of exactly that. And I promise you, it's the same video.
Yeah.
And the first time I saw it, I was like, that cannot be the same video. How could you possibly not see a 6-foot gorilla?
But more importantly, though,
I can say there's one burning question, please, Pip.
Tony
you must answer. Tony S has said in the chat room there. What on earth was the actual count? Come on, how many passes were there?
I've absolutely no idea.
Oh, rubbish.
Go back and watch it to your heart's content. It really isn't important.
No, okay.
I think actually, if you watch the full video in YouTube, it does give you the correct answer.
Okay, right, yeah.
I'm sure it's not as high as 23, though.
No, okay, all right, yeah.
Or 99, Jeff Felmuth.
Indeed. Well, what can I say, Pip? That was a brilliant segment. And you always say you have to over-edit your things. You don't need to. You're very good live, sir. You don't need to worry about that. That was very, very entertaining. So, yes, what was that? So afterwards, we were all tested on the recordings. Yes, no, fair enough. So that's where we bring this particular segment to a close. I think we should hear that jingle one last time.
Okay,
seeing as he's
Plane safety from the flight deck with pilot Pip.
I know. I know, absolutely. I am trying to persuade both Rob and Lai, who do our voiceovers and stuff. I am trying to persuade them to actually come to our 200th. So you may yet get to meet the lady that does our beautiful voice for us. But so do you need to run off, sir, or are you able to stick around till the end of the show?
I can stick around, but I can go and get back in my box if you want.
No, not at all. No, so
we're not like Jeff with APG. I mean, Jeff keeps halal in a box in his room.
Does he?
Yeah, he just gets them out in the show to sort of say the disclaimer at the end of the show.
Oh, that's very good of him.
And then he puts them back in the box
Does
again.
He?
Poor Hillel.
Do you think he minds?
I don't know. No, we won't keep you in a box anyway, Pip.
No, indeed.
Thank you.
Yeah, indeed.
So moving on, we have got 2 bits of we've got some voice. Well, it's a kind of story feedback that's been sent to us.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to do this now. He's actually in the chat room here, so it's lovely to have him participate. And everybody who is anybody will know, obviously, that a very tragic event took place several years ago now on 9/11. And I've been lucky enough that having been friends with Jeff on Facebook, I've had the privilege of reading this story for a couple of years now, and it's very kindly been voiced by the man himself. It is, I promise you, please, everybody, stop what you're doing for a moment and listen to this, because this is, I think, it's basically a pilot's account of what happened on that terrible day.
Hello, my name is Jeff Feldmuth. I'm currently a captain at American Airlines flying 737s. But on September 11th, 2001, I was a first officer flying the 767 on day 4 of a 4-day trip. And this is my story of that day. It was a beautiful morning, both in Caracas, where we were departing from, and in Kennedy, which was our final destination, is where I am based. We were scheduled to depart at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we did so, taking off out of Caracas right at 8 o'clock. On our way up to New York, where we knew is a beautiful, cloudless, beautiful, gorgeous summer day. Everything was normal until we were handed off by the Venezuelan air traffic controllers to San Juan Center. And as we checked in with San Juan Center, their first words to us after we checked in was that, "American, you need to check with your company. Kennedy is closed." At the time, the captain was flying the aircraft. I was on the radios. And so I queried him, well, what's going on? His response sent chills up and down our spines, because being a retired military officer and pilot, as was the captain, these words are words you never want to hear. I can't tell you over an open frequency. The alarm bells going off in both of our heads were screaming at us, saying something is drastically wrong. If you can't tell us over an open frequency, it must be really bad. Fortunately, the model of the 767 we were flying that day had a satellite phone in the cockpit. So we made a phone call to Dallas, got our dispatcher on the line, and asked, 1, what was going on, and 2, what were we supposed to do. So he told us that 2 airplanes had hit the World Trade Center. We immediately recognized this as the bad news. However, he did not tell us that they were commercial airliners. He did not tell us that one of them was ours. So he then directed us to make our way towards Miami, and they would figure out what to do with this once we got there. So we got off the phone with him, and I coordinated with San Juan Center to get clearance to go from our present position, which was just south of Puerto Rico, over to Miami, which is about halfway between Caracas and JFK. So now we are making our way towards Miami, and we still have questions. So we are sending messages to the company trying to get some answers about, 1, what's going to happen is when we get to Miami, and 2, what's really going on. And the only response we get is a rather disturbing message through the printer that says, not even the flight attendants are allowed in the cockpit. At this point, the crash axe comes out of its holder, which is right behind my seat, and it is now in my lap. Charlie, the captain, looks at me and goes, Jeff, it's your airplane. I want to be free to handle what's going on, whatever that may be. At this point, we make a decision that we are not going to tell anyone on board what is going on, that we're going to Miami, or what has happened in New York City. For all intents and purposes, they think they're still on their way to Kennedy. So we switch over to Miami Center. This takes about another hour. It's about a 3.5 hour flight from Caracas to Miami. We have opened up our publications because we had all the JFK approach plates and maps out, so now we had to switch over to Miami. It doesn't take very long, but it's still something we have to look at. And all of a sudden, Miami Center comes up and makes a broadcast to everyone on the radio saying, Everyone stand by. I will be calling you back in sequence. All U.S. airspace is closed. I'll be asking you where you want to land outside of the United States. So if our hackles weren't raised before, they are now. So now we can't go to Miami. As the first officer, I have the publications that cover diversion fields for Latin America and the Caribbean. So I pull out my book and I select, with Charlie's approval, that we're going to go to Nassau in the Bahamas. It's 11,000 feet of runway. It's an American Airlines station. So we can be serviced there, and we have people there who can handle us and take care of us for whatever is going on. So for the next 15 to 20 minutes, we listen to Miami Center divert people all over the Caribbean. Can't go back to San Juan, that's U.S. territory. Can't go to the U.S. Virgin Islands, that's U.S. territory. People are going back to the Dominican Republic, to Haiti, to the other Virgin Islands, back to Aruba, Antigua, you name it, they're going there. So he stops for a moment and comes across the radio and goes, okay, these 3 flights are going to be allowed in. We were first. We were going to be allowed into Miami. There was a continental flight roughly a half an hour behind us out of Caracas that was scheduled Caracas to Miami. Then the American Caracas-Miami flight that was an hour behind us. To my knowledge, those are the last 3 airplanes to land in Miami that day. So we're going to be first. In those days, Miami had 2 east-west runways, which were the primaries, and 1 northeast-southwest runway. They were landing to the east that day. And normally, when you check in with Miami Approach Control, you do not say anything on the radio because the frequency is that busy, because there's that many airplanes on the frequency trying all to land at Miami. They will call you back when the guy gets to take a breath. That morning, it's roughly 11 o'clock. We are the only one on the radio. We are the only airplane in this guy's airspace. It was the weirdest sensation in the world to hear the quiet on the radio. It's noisier at 3 a.m. So that's a little unnerving. There's also nobody on the TCAS, which is a way we can see other airplanes on a scope on our displays. It shows other airplanes in their relation to us in altitude. There's no one else there. No general aviation, no business, no commercial. Just us. So as we maneuver out to the west of the field, again, I'm flying to line up on what was then known as 09 left, which is now 08 right. We're about 10 miles out on final, and I'm looking out at the airport. And if the hair wasn't standing up on the back of my neck, it is now. For those of you who have ever visited what is affectionately called the Boneyard out in Tucson, Arizona, you'll know what Miami looks like. There were airplanes everywhere. Everywhere. The entire north ramp, which is a huge cargo ramp, it is basically the length of the airport east-west, is covered with airplanes, parked nose to nose, tail to tail, wing over wing. I mean, it was frightening to look at. A lot of the taxiways had airplanes parked on them. There's a huge hold pad just to the west of the main terminal that was covered with airplanes. So this is what Charlie and I are looking at. And it's a beautiful day in Miami as well. So we're coming in and we configure the airplane. And about 1,500 feet above the ground, I call for the final flap setting, which is flaps 30. I've never had this happen before, and I've never had this happen since. We get a condition which is known as split flaps, where one side of the aircraft has flaps 30, the other side of the aircraft has flaps 25. It is an emergency situation. It's not that difficult to land with. It's unusual. We don't practice very often. But normally you would go around, go out in a holding pattern, and try to resolve the situation. It takes about anywhere from 15 to 20 to 30 minutes to run the checklist. It's kind of complicated depending on how it works out. So here we are looking at split flaps, approximately 4 miles from the field, and all Charlie says, "Jeff, I'm sorry, I'm taking the airplane." And I looked at him and says, "Charlie, it's your airplane. Here's your ref speed." And basically I selected the flaps 25 approach speed, which we have available to us rather easily. Because we both knew, with what we were looking at outside and a little bit we knew about the situation, that we were landing. There was no doubt in our mind. Now, prior to 9/11, if an aircraft was seen taxiing into the gate area with its flaps extended, that was a signal to air traffic control that you were being hijacked. It also was a signal that you wanted armed intervention now. I mean, right now. So we know this. So as we land, Charlie takes the airplane to clear the runway. I switch over to ground control, and I am yelling at the ground controller on the radio. We're a little nervous. And I'm yelling at this guy, Miami Tower, this is American 936. Our flaps are down because they're broke. I want to make sure beyond any reasonable doubt that we're not going to have cops coming out shooting at our tires to disable the aircraft. So they understand that. As we taxi in, Charlie makes his first announcement to the passengers about what's going on. His PA goes something like this. Ladies and gentlemen, from looking outside or by looking at your watches, you may realize that this is not New York. And that's how we started. He then proceeds to tell them the little bit that we know about the two aircraft hitting the World Trade Center. Remember, at this point, we do not know the towers have fallen. We do not know the commercial airliners. We do not know about the Pentagon or Western Pennsylvania, Shanksville. He does ask the people to remain seated once we get to the gate for the agents to come on board to explain what is going to happen, how they're going to get to their destination. So we taxi in, and miraculously, we actually get a gate right away. I don't know how they did that because there was, like I said before, there was airplanes everywhere. And as we get to the gate, we park, shut down, we go through our checklist. The agent comes on board, and she gets on the PA, and now we all know that the towers are down. We all know they're commercial airliners. We know that some of them are ours. We find out about the Pentagon. We still do not know about Western Pennsylvania, Shanksville. So there, you could hear a pin drop on the airplane. You know, there's like almost 200 people on this airplane, including the crew. And there is dead silence. Everybody gets off the airplane. The crew is still on board. The captain and I and the flight attendants. And we're sitting there because we are not supposed to be there. So I'm sitting in the cockpit and I turn on my cell phone. There's a voicemail from my wife, who is in absolute tears. She has no idea where or if I even am. I'm frantically trying to call her at this point. But because of the phone system of the hotel, not the hotel, the restaurant where she worked at the time, I can't get through and I can't break in on the line. So as I said earlier, I'm supposed to land about noon in New York, which puts me home before my children get home from school. My children are in 1st, 3rd, and 11th grade at this point. So fortunately, I have the phone number to the elementary school. I get the secretary on the phone, and I go, Ms. Fish, what do the children know? And she goes, well, we have not told them anything. And I go, well, I'm a pilot for American Airlines. And that's where she lost it. Once she gets a little composed, I explain to her that my children need to be aware of where I am. They expected to find me at home when they got home from school. So she agrees to do that for me. Now I request that she call the high school, because I do not have their number, because I know that my oldest daughter is very aware of the events of the day. In fact, she's in an English class watching on live TV my airplane fly into the World Trade Center. My daughter is sitting in that class when the guidance counselor comes to her room to get her. When that happens, my daughter knew I was dead. I think my family had it harder than I did. At least I knew I was. I knew where I was. I knew I was safe for now. But I couldn't get a hold of them. And like I said, they did not know where or if I even was. So that was kind of a tough part of the day. So after about an hour sitting there in the airplane, we find out that we're going to a hotel And for Charlie and I, it ends up being our normal layover hotel, which is down on Miami Beach. So as Charlie and I exit the terminal to go get our limousine van service out to the hotel, one of the Miami news stations is there, and this woman throws a microphone in my face and asks me my opinion of the events of the day. And this is the last thing I needed. All I could think to say to this woman into the mic was, "There, but for the grace of God, go I." And I walked away. Was it on the news? I don't know. Do I care? No. It was rather tragic what was going on. So we end up at the hotel, and this is a hotel that is almost exclusively airline crews. In fact, it's almost exclusively American Airlines and United Airlines, the two companies involved in the events that day. There's hundreds of us there, and it was probably the best place to be. I remember sitting out by the pool, trying to calm down, and I have a woman sitting on each knee. They were flight attendants, and I know these women to this day. And I had two women sitting on my knees, on my shoulders, bawling their eyes out. They were just so distraught. Normally, at this hotel, there's a cooler out by the pool, and it's an honor system. You put $1 in, you can take a beer. The cooler was not there. Instead, there was this 50-gallon trash can full of beer and sodas and stuff. And guys were just walking downstairs, throwing a 20 in the box, and everybody wants a beer, it's on me. There was that kind of camaraderie going on. People walking around the lobby. Anybody got a charger for this kind of cell phone? Somewhere in here, I finally do get a hold of my wife. Yeah, let's just say that was an interesting discussion. It's hard enough even just thinking about it. So we spend the next 5 days in Miami. I'm sitting there at the pool watching the F-15s fly up and down the coastline. Jealous as all get out because I had been retired for less than 2 years flying that exact same airplane. And part of me is still really angry about the whole day, not just because we were attacked, but because I spent 22 years on active duty being paid to be shot at to protect this country, but I could shoot back. And now they were trying to kill me and I couldn't do anything about it. That really, really made me angry. It still does. So we get home Saturday night to New York. I'm still not home yet. I've been gone for 9 straight days. 4 days of the trip and then another 5 days in Miami. And because of the events, the FAA has waived a lot of the crew rest requirements, trying to get the airlines back on their feet. Because, I mean, we are scattered all over the United States, all over the world. I have friends who were stuck in Gander, up in Canada, Sao Paulo, Brazil, over in Europe. So trying to just find pilots who were able to fly, who were local enough to fly, was getting to be a real issue. Because there was metal and crews all over the world where they weren't supposed to be. So our next trip was the same one we had just flown. It was show up in the morning, first thing in the morning, and fly out to Bermuda, stay the day in Bermuda, come back to New York the next day, and then on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th days, we'd be flying through the Caribbean. So we're trying to get released for 1 day at home. And what we offer the schedule is, listen, we will start our trip on Monday when it comes back from Bermuda. We're just asking for 1 day at home. And the schedulers are arguing with the captain. He says they're telling us we have to be there the next morning. We have to be there. And Charlie finally tells the guy, listen, I'm hanging up now. Am I coming to work on Monday, or am I coming up to work a week from now? You tell me, because I'm not going to be here tomorrow morning. We're not coming. And so they finally give in, so we decide to show up Monday morning for the remainder of the 3 days of our trip. And I finally get to go home. I get home, it's probably close to midnight on Saturday night. Finally get to be with my family. Needless to say, it was a quick turn because I did have to go back to work on Monday, so Sunday was spent very close to those I love. Interesting, I normally leave for work 3 hours before I have to be there, but on that first trip on Monday morning, I decided to make it 4 hours. It was an hour not enough. It took me 4 hours. I got to the aircraft at departure time. I was the only pilot there. Charlie was an hour behind me. I had like 3 flight attendants. I think I needed 5 or 6. They were just so happy to see crews make it that it wasn't a problem. The hardest part of that drive-in wasn't the traffic jam. The hardest part was driving across the Verrazano Bridge. The Verrazano Bridge is the bridge between Staten Island and the southern end of New York City by Coney Island. It's at the entrance to the bay, to the harbor. And if you look off to the right, there is the southern tip of Manhattan, where the World Trade Center had been. You could see the smoke from miles away, but from the bridge, especially once you approached the apex of the bridge, the top of the bridge, you could see the hole. You could see the fire still burning. In fact, that hole smoked for months and months and months. That was the hard part. I almost stopped the car. It was just almost overwhelming to see that lack of skyline. To this day, when I drive over that bridge, I look over there at where the towers had stood. And yes, the Freedom Tower is there now. But for years it wasn't. And it still hurts, even though the Freedom Tower is there. It's really cool doing it at night, because the Freedom Tower, of course, it's the tallest building in the city. It's the tallest building on the East Coast. And it's all lit up. And, it's just like, that, to me, is a shining testament in honor of all those who suffered and died that day. So I publish this letter every year. This is the first time I've recorded it, and it's taken a few attempts to get this far. As you can tell, I get kind of choked up. So initially started just sending this out as an email a year after 9/11, just to my family and friends. Some of them asked me if they could share it with people they knew, and I said sure. It's not something that I'm trying to bring attention to myself. It's something that I put out there so people don't forget. I can tell you now that this letter has made it probably all the way around the world. I know it's gone as far west as Australia and as far east as Europe. And I'm sure there's some people in South America who've read the letter that I've posted, and it's been shared by friends, family, people I don't even know. In fact, one year I even got it back. It came back to me from somebody who shared it with me, didn't realizing it was actually my letter, which I thought was kind of amusing. And the same holds true for this recording. People have asked me to do this so it could be published. Part of me almost didn't want to do it, but part of me says it needs to be shared. I know it's been read on other podcasts, the letter has. I know that a certain very famous radio talk show host in the United States has a copy of the letter. As I said, this is so people do not forget. Because of my sharing my letter over the years, I know other people who have shared their stories in a similar way. I just received one from a woman who saw my story for the first time and replied to me and shared her story. Her husband was in the service. She was visiting family. Her husband was actually not on duty at the time. He was a reservist. Actually, no, he wasn't. He was on active duty, but he was home with the children. He was watching the children while she was in Oklahoma, and they lived in the Washington, D.C. area. And her story of him being called in, because he was actually a pilot for the VIP unit at Andrews Air Force Base, and how he had to get the vice president out of town. She's in Oklahoma. She can't get home. Her story of getting home to get her children and the neighbors who took care of the kids because dad was gone and she was away. So there's thousands of stories out there. Our church had a service for our teen group. My wife and I attended with my oldest daughter, and it was very interesting because in his homily, Father McDermott got up and said, "Some of you may be wondering where God was in all of this." And he proceeds to tell the stories of all the people who weren't in the tower that morning. The woman who missed her train, the gentleman who forgot he'd had a dental appointment so he went there instead of work, someone else who missed a train, someone else who stopped for donuts. To put it all in perspective, realize that 50,000 people worked in those two towers. Less than 3,000 perished. But the number of lives impacted by that day goes far beyond those 3,000 families. There's the hundreds of thousands of people who were either stuck on Manhattan Island that day, stuck in traffic in other places, stranded all over the world because the United States airspace basically shut down. People like myself, by the woman I just mentioned, trying to get home to her kids. My brother's a doctor in central New Jersey, how he had to evacuate his hospital of anybody who did not require to be in the hospital because they were expecting mass casualties. To my sister, who had her children were friends with other children who lost parents that day. It was a terrible event. Let us never forget what happened. Let us never forget how this country came together to respond to that tragedy in such unity. So I end this on that note. May God bless us all. Thank you.
I mean, Jeff, that must have been one of the hardest things to do, and I think I speak for all of us listening to that story, everybody who is listening live, everybody who's listening to this in the recorded version that goes out as a podcast. Thank you for recording that for us. It's a letter that I've been lucky enough to read over a couple of years. From my point of view, it was fascinating to hear. Obviously, we were all very aware of what was going on in the news at the time of the awful events, and it was nice. Not nice, that's not the word that I'm looking for, but to hear it from the other side of the cockpit door, as Jeff would often say.
I think it's safe to say that everyone in the chat room, Matt, is in total agreement that they 100% appreciate the fact that Jeff's put this into words, and also voiced it, obviously, and it's incredibly hard for Jeff to do. It is
very much appreciated for making that recording. It's one of those events, again, I mean, everybody, I suppose, in their lives always have an event where they remember what they were doing at the time that they found out what happened. Mine, actually, I was at work, and we ended up going, I think, down the pub, believe it or not, to watch the footage unfold in of said event. And when I was watching it on the TV, I genuinely thought that it was a film that was on the television. Actually, I didn't think it was actually live news footage of the events unfolding, essentially.
Actually, Jeff said in the chat room, Matt, that interesting that we're hearing this and that the terror still continues. He says you guys, as in here in the UK,
yes, that's correct,
are dealing with yet another incident here in the UK, in our capital today, on the tube station this morning. I
mean, as this is recording out, and I hope that as this is playing out, I hope this doesn't change. At the moment, there have been some non-life-threatening injuries, is how it's been described as things stand at the moment. I'm pleased to say nobody has lost their lives, but I guess we're never going to get to the bottom of this, and as Jeff quite rightly says in this, I think it's important that we remember. Anything that you'd like to add to this, Pip?
No, Jeff, thanks very much for sharing. It's a terrible event, but an amazing story to hear it told from your point of view. Everyone remembers where they were that day. It was just one of those events everyone will remember. I remember in London, actually. I was just coming out of the gym, getting changed in the shower. They had a TV in the changing rooms, and it was just breaking as I was coming out. They said an aircraft had hit one of the towers, and naturally, like everyone else, I assumed it was just a light aircraft. And then you just remember the amazement of watching this whole thing unfold. And I was in central London. There was a real fear that the tall buildings in London might be under threat. And I remember they evacuated Canary Wharf Tower and several of the other big buildings around there. It was unreal, wasn't it? That whole day and the days following it.
Yeah.
And like Jeff says, it's just amazing. This, if I can swear for a moment, Matt, this shit's still going on today.
Yeah.
Remember the scores and scores of other events that have happened all around the world.
Yeah.
From these lunatics, and well, let's not go into that. But
no, indeed, I know what you mean.
Unbelievable.
So a big thank you to Jeff for that again.
Absolutely.
From all of us here on all the community.
And I'm sure everybody who's listened to this really appreciates it. It must be very emotional, so hard for you to do, and we thank you for doing it. So we're going to draw a line under that, and we're going to...
We've got a segment.
We do, yes. So although Nev has run away because he's busy trying to catch his aeroplane to get home, I don't know why he'd want to do that.
No.
I'd stay in the States personally.
He's leaving 25 degrees Celsius to come back to 5
to minus
degrees
5,
Celsius.
Absolutely, or at least it feels like minus 5. So yes, here it is. It's Nev's passenger experience.
Hello, it's Nev here again with another in the series of Nev's Passenger Experience. Well, today I'm in the studio at home with another one of my audiovisual industry colleagues, Andrew Smith. Andrew has travelled extensively in Europe, the US, the Middle East and the Far East on business and for pleasure. And we're going to talk about a number of topics regarding his own passenger experience on a number of different carriers. So welcome, Andrew. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you, Nev, and thanks very much for inviting me along today.
You're very welcome, sir. Right, let's get the height thing done first. I'm just on 6 foot. How tall are you?
I'm 2 metres or 6'6" in old money.
Gosh, so what kind of difficulties does that present when you're travelling with the airlines?
Well, it's been a problem. I've been this height since I was 15 and I'm now older than that. So it's a real problem in terms of the leg room, and I'm not the slimmest chap in the world as well. So the narrowness of the seats on some aircraft also come into play, where you are pretty much hemmed in and you can't move at all. It's really uncomfortable, and if you're not sort of built like me, then it's some people can find it difficult to understand what the problem is. But when you are built like me, the problem is extremely obvious and very uncomfortable.
So what about the emergency exit seat? How does that offer you any benefit on these airlines that you travel on?
Well, there's no consistency between the airlines, is what I've found. And you name it, I've flown them, from Ryanair, who I will never fly with again, to EasyJet, to BA, to Virgin Atlantic, to Eva Air, and all the rest of them. There's no consistency in seat pitch. I mean, did you know that there's actually laws governing how much room live cattle must be given where they're being transported in the back of a truck? But there's no law stating how much space a human being should have in economy class on an aircraft.
There's a lot of material there, then, isn't there?
Yeah, there's an awful lot of material. This is something I can talk about quite a lot. The exit row seat, the fabled exit row seat, on most airlines will provide some additional leg room. I think if you look at EasyJet, it certainly gives you an extra couple of inches. It does on most of BA as well. However, I have noticed that the seats on some BA aircraft are different in the exit row to the standard economy seat, and they're much narrower. So you find yourself hemmed in. And we've got to remember, you've paid an extra £40 each way on BA for that seat to find you've got more leg room but less width. It's something that BA don't tell you on the advanced booking form.
Interesting. Now, you've flown extensively in the Middle East and in the Far East as well. Who have you been flying with, and what's been the experience there?
For the Middle East, I've been flying on business mostly, so I've been lucky. I've been in premium economy, and it's been almost exclusively British Airways, and their premium economy is not bad at all. I mean, there's a decent amount of leg room, even when the seat in front is fully reclined. The seat back isn't touching my knees or my shins or anything. I find that these awful footrests get in the way. The flop down ones just tend to eat into your space in your seat. I wish the airlines wouldn't do those. But I've also flown Eva Air, who I favour on the London to Bangkok route. My brother lives in Bangkok, so I tend to holiday in Thailand quite a lot, where I can go and meet up with him. They have the best leg room of any premium economy cabin I've flown in, but they have the worst seat. The BA are sort of in the middle on both in terms of seat comfort and leg room. Virgin Atlantic, however, I went to Havana in Cuba with them at Christmas. The seat in Virgin Atlantic's premium economy is absolutely amazing. It's extraordinarily comfortable, and I have to say the in-flight entertainment system's quite good as well. However, they are the worst of the premium economy cabins I've ever been in because of the appalling lack of leg room. And when the guy in front reclines his seat, it's just like sitting in economy. There's just no room at all. And my flight to Havana was indeed my first and only ever flight with Virgin Atlantic, and I did stick a complaint to to them when I got back and logged a complaint with the cabin service director, and they did very kindly send me some vouchers for use on another Virgin Atlantic flight. However, that doesn't really solve the problem in that I can't fit in the seat in the first place.
But isn't that mad? I mean, they've got the comfortable seat, that's all nicely worked out, but the legroom is completely inadequate. I mean, who designs this stuff?
Well, it's down to the airlines how they actually lay out their seats. One thing I did know, coming back, I managed to get the bulkhead row in premium economy. I think I was sat in 14J, and coincidentally, I was actually sat next to the British ambassador to Cuba on the way home. So it's always nice to sit next to somebody interesting.
Quick name drop,
quick name drop on that one.
Totally.
And I could put my legs out straight in front of me, and there was still another 4 to 6 inches of room between the soles of my feet and the bulkhead, and I couldn't understand why Virgin don't just move that seat forward a bit and give everybody else in the 5 rows behind an extra inch or 2 of legroom. I can't understand why they've done it like this. So if you're flying Virgin Atlantic on a 747, the seats to have in premium economy are 14A and B and 14J and K, because the legroom is just phenomenal and the seat is lovely and wide and very comfortable. I had a very pleasant trip on the way back from Havana, unlike the flight going out.
This is all very interesting information. Now, we've been talking to a lot of people in our industry about the whole problem with a race to the bottom, if you like, in terms of, the prices being quite high, but the level of service being mediocre, average, or not very good. What's your experience been?
Well, 6 weeks ago, I went to New York for 9 days with my best friend, and we went premium economy on British Airways. And it was interesting. On the way out, we had I was on the first flight of the day out Heathrow. It went about 8:30 in the morning. We had a nice hot breakfast, and then we had a sandwich about 90 minutes before we landed. On the way back, we had the flight left about 7:30 or so. It was a bit delayed, and we had a hot meal as soon as we got into the air, but the breakfast had completely disappeared, and we was just given a piece of malt loaf and some biscuits, and they've stopped all this in-flight biscuit run. There was only one drinks run. BA are cutting back on all this. I'm using BA as an example here. BA are cutting back on all these extras and things, but I don't see the price of a ticket coming down.
Yeah, and that's a very common complaint, actually. I think people would also say that they would prefer perhaps BA to be the premium airline, and therefore one will pay the premium price and you get the premium service. And I think people would understand that and be happy with that.
I completely agree with that. BA have always sold themselves on being a premium product, a premium quality product, offering premium level of service and things. And whilst the onboard service was fine, it wasn't a patch on Virgin Atlantic for my Cuba trip at Christmas. But they've just cut back so much now. And the prices of the extras, like reserving the seat in advance, unless you're, I think, now a gold card holder, even if you've booked a business class seat, you have to pay for booking that seat. And I like to see, I suffer from a little bit from claustrophobia. I don't want to be in the middle on the back row next to the bulkhead. I want to be sat on the aisle. And unfortunately, from the trip to New York, that put another £90 on the price of the ticket.
Oh, yeah.
However, on the trip to Havana, it put nothing on the price of the ticket with Virgin.
Extraordinary, isn't it? I think the other thing is you've got the mainline full-service airlines trying to have a go at being low-cost carriers in some cases, and they're no good at it because their cost base is far too high. At least with Ryanair and EasyJet, you can think what you like about both of those airlines, but at least you basically know what you're getting for your money, don't you?
Ryanair and EasyJet have never claimed to be full frills or full service airlines. They've only been low cost, low service level, pay for everything. And you understand that when you book the ticket with them. But BA seem to be trying to charge a premium fare but cutting back on everything possible they can, and they've been dropping the drinks runs and things like that. You now get one drinks run.
Yeah, it's not very clever at all, isn't it? But think about the future. I mean, do you think that airlines pay attention to what their premium customers are saying about this? Because this is not new. This has been going on for a while now.
People like EasyJet and Ryanair don't have premium customers. They just have all customers at one level. So they're offering the McDonald's type solution. Are BA and other airlines listening to their premium customers? I'm not 100% sure. We've seen BA cut back huge amounts. They've taken the flowers out of the toilets on the aircraft and cut back on the goodie bags and everything else. And these are you're cutting things out from the people who are paying £3,000 to £4,000 for a ticket in business class, for a flexible ticket. And the first class people is anything up to $5,500 for a return to New York if you want full flexibility. These are the people where you're making your money, yet you're cutting back what you're delivering to them. And they're deserting in droves. And it's far easier to keep a customer than it is to find a new customer. So if you're sat down the back in economy, it's not going to be the best experience in the world. We all know that. But if you're sat up the front in the nice seats, you expect a nice goodie bag, decent levels of service, and much, much better food. But the cutbacks have just gone too far now. I did see in the news a couple of weeks ago that Alex Cruz had announced that he was going to be doing upgrades and bringing some things back in the premium classes. But I think he's cut it too hard, too much, too fast, too soon. He's come from a low-cost airline background with his history at Vueling, I think it was, where he was working. And he's tried to apply that model to BA, and he hasn't listened to what the passengers have said, and he certainly hasn't listened to what his staff had said, because the staff, the actual cabin crew on the aircraft, have been saying don't cut back in the premium classes, and they're absolutely right, because that's where your revenue comes from. And the 747 I took to New York, I think it only had 110 economy seats. Everything else was premium seating, either premium economy, business, or first.
Yeah, I think this is the problem. I'm speaking to, people that we both know, Kevin Murphy, Neil Hartigan. They've all said the same thing, basically, that, that's where the revenue is going to come from in the premium seats, in the premium cabins. If you're actually not delivering the service you're charging for, then actually you're not ticking the box, are you?
Absolutely. If you are charging a premium price, you need to deliver the premium experience. That's a premium level of service with premium food and premium baggage handling and all the rest of it to get your bags off first. BA are just cutting back so much on this at the moment. I really think they're heading on a nosedive, and I just don't know that they can pull out of that dive.
So if you were the brand manager of BA's Club Europe or Club World, and you weren't doing your job that you're doing now, what would be the first thing that you would change, do you think?
So if I was the brand manager looking after, let's say, business and first class on British Airways, the first thing I'd do is I'd drop the fee for actually seat allocation when you're booking online. That's the first thing that goes. If you're paying £2,500 for a business class seat, you should be able to choose on the aircraft where you sit. The next thing I'm going to do is look at the in-flight experience. So we need to start with the check-in process, okay, and make sure that there is still dedicated check-in lanes. I know BA have just opened a new wing up at Heathrow for first class, but don't forget the business class passengers as well. They don't want to use self-service machines. They want a face-to-face check-in. Now, economy passengers, leave them to use the self-service. You don't have to worry about that. Next, have a look at the lounges. Are they clean? Are they up to date? The Virgin Clubhouse at Heathrow has an extremely good offering with both the experience and the food and the levels of service. Check all that out. Make sure that it's up to the mark. Then, with the in-flight experience, make sure the planes are actually cleaned properly. That's a huge bugbear of mine, is a dirty aircraft. Then look at the food. Increase the food offering in terms of the quality and the variety. And for the premium passengers, bring back some snacks and things like that midway through the flight. And don't forget to mix the businessmen a gin and tonic if that's what they want. When you get to New York, make sure that priority lane is there for immigration and that the bags are off first without fail. Basically, BA's cost base is too high in my book. I really think they need to look at stripping out all the layers of senior management they've got and start directing the money they will save from that into the customer-facing areas, into delivering the in-flight experience, and also the experience when you book and the experience when you get off the aircraft the other end of your destination, to make sure that there are staff available and your bags are delivered in a timely manner.
That's absolutely superb, Andrew, and thank you very much indeed for sharing your opinions with us. And, well, I'll look forward to what the response is going to be.
Find this and other great shows at the Aviation Media Network.
TheVoicesInYourHead.com.
The Plain Talking UK podcast is a voluntary project that aims to keep you informed with the latest aviation-related stories from newswires across the globe.
Producing our content does cost money though. If you enjoy our show, why not help us keep on the air by making a donation towards the server and website hosting fees through PayPal. Any contributions would be greatly appreciated.
Are you an Amazon user? If so, why not do your shopping through the link on our website? There's no cost to yourself and Amazon pay us a small referral fee on qualifying purchases.
To find out more about the show and to meet the team, take yourself to our website www.plaintalkinguk.com
or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/plaintalkinguk, on Twitter via @plaintalkinguk, or get in touch via email on podcast@plaintalkinguk.com. Thanks for listening.
Flybe 5823, Trent Dane for 23-hour Manchester, Wizz Air 6X, climb flight level 210, direct to Bretlands Park. United 123, maintain 280 knots. London 2DME, turn right onto Bravo, link, 21 join Alpha, hold at Mora, Speedbird 472, LOC/DME, approach runway 27 left, follow the green stand 544.
That's enough air traffic control for today, Nat. Bedtime.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like to fly a commercial passenger jet? Looked up at the sky and thought, I wish that was me? Well, now anyone has the chance to have a go at flying in a real aircraft simulator. NP Simulations and Flight Experience London, the only official Boeing licensed product of its kind in the UK, offer you the chance to fly anywhere in the world in their fixed-base Boeing 737-800 flight simulator. And that's not all. Ground School London offers many different courses for the up-and-coming pilot looking for a start in aviation. With prices starting at just £109, the sky's the limit. So for the ultimate flight simulator experience, or engaging preparatory courses, including those for schools and colleges, check out the websites at www.london.flightexperience.co.uk and www.groundsschoollondon.com, or call on 020 300 40 616. NP Simulations. Fly your dreams.
Great work from Nev again.
I am so excited about our 200th show. I am so excited. I literally cannot wait. Can we do it now?
I love the ad.
Can we do it now?
I do love the ad.
Can I do it now? Tony S says, who's the voiceover guy? I recognise the voice. Yes. Anyone watch Strictly? No. Sorry.
No, but they're very well done again for Nev for his work on the passenger experience.
Yeah,
I loved that.
absolutely.
That was awesome, Nev. Awesome.
Yeah. Can I add a small tiny bit to his interview?
Of course you
there?
can do, yes.
Because there's another great interview. I'm really enjoying Nev's passenger experiences, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else has noticed, there seems to be a common thread running through his interviews regarding BA. I don't know if anyone's picked up on that. About how crap it is. But if, BA are in big trouble. If you go and have a look at an annual report from BA, which is freely available online, pick a year, any year for the last 20 years or so, pick one at random. And somewhere on about page 1 on the BA annual report, it says something to the effect of British Airways' most valuable asset is its brand image and brand name and should be protected at all costs.
Yeah.
And I think they should read their own report because they're getting a right bashing in all four corners of the globe at the moment. It's funnily enough, I was on a BA flight this morning.
Oh, what?
Down to Munich. There wasn't a single spare seat, empty seat. It was packed to the rafters. So it's a bit of a mismatch, isn't it? On one hand, everyone's giving them a bashing about how appalling the service is,
but how was
and
the flight, though, Pip?
But at the same time, they're making money hand over fist.
Yeah.
So the gentleman in the interview there said they should get rid of the fees for choosing a seat. Yeah. If people are paying it, then why the heck would they?
Why would you deny yourself that revenue?
Yeah,
stream?
they make millions and millions and millions from that.
It is.
It was like 60 million, I think I read somewhere on seat allocation fees per year.
That is.
So they're not going to get rid of that without good reason.
No,
anyway, that's my bash of BA for the day.
Right, good.
I'll be back with another BA bashing tomorrow if anyone's interested.
I dare say, yes.
So we obviously you're not in the UK at the moment, then, Pip. Are you flying home tomorrow, or were you?
No, I'm day one today. I've just started.
Day one.
They went on a 6-day trip. Yeah, a bit of a nightmare day. I had like a 10-hour, maybe even 11-hour duty day for a 50-minute flight.
Oh, what?
I had to crack of dawn this morning at Luton, get a car down to Heathrow, BA to Munich, a train from Munich to Salzburg, 2.5 hours, then hang around at Salzburg for a couple of hours, and then fly here to Lugano. So a lot of travelling and duty time for not much.
Oh, hello, Dr. Steph.
Oh, hello, Steph. How are you doing?
Oh, dear.
Pip.
Right.
I can't say that anymore. She's engaged, isn't she?
I see.
With an added at the end.
Okay, good.
So that was.
You happy now?
Where are you off to? Any fine, far-flung European destinations this weekend?
Yeah, tomorrow we are going from here to Marseille in France. Marseille, oui. And then from there we're going to Catania in Sicily, which is nice. Don't often go there. So hopefully I'll be spending the night there tomorrow night in Sicily.
Oh, very nice.
Godfather country, yeah.
Lovely.
So we've got a bit of a heads up for those of you guys listening to the live show at the moment in the chat room. So that's concerning next week's show, and we'll be back to our usual 7 p.m. slot for next week's show. We've got a couple of brand spanking new guests coming on the show next week.
Yeah, very exciting.
And we're lucky enough to have not one, but two Airbus A320 pilots on the show at the same time, which is quite good.
There's a reason for that, obviously, because they both do a certain podcast. So,
we've got both the hosts, Matt and Andy. So it's going to be a confusing show with two Matts.
That's fine. We'll cope.
So we've got Matt and Andy. Now they're the hosts of the A320 podcast.
So
and for those of you guys, look them up on our iTunes. They do a podcast all about it's just a real techno-geeko show all about the A320 Airbus, and so check those guys out. We're going to have them on the show next week, so hopefully the phone's ringing. That's a good start. Hopefully you'll be able to ask them whatever questions you want to ask them on next week's show.
So, yes, as Carlos's phone is busy ringing like mad, it is time for us all to say goodbye. I hope that's not the last time we have a live segment from you, sir. That was very enjoyable.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'll have to put my thinking cap on, won't I?
Absolutely.
Because we haven't had a segment from you for years.
Yes, I know. And then we have twice in as many
400 years. So when's the next episode of your fine show being released? Any idea?
Oh, well, I just released one a few days ago. If you haven't picked that one up, do so. And then I'm planning to do one with Captain Al very soon.
Oh, no. That'd be a long show.
Captain Al and possibly another special guest. Someone who's sitting just over there on my screen.
He's not pointing at me. He's not pointing at
you. I don't want you on my show. Get off.
Well, you certainly don't want me.
Yeah, turn his microphone down.
Oh, right. Okay. That sounds interesting. I look forward to further.
But of course, this is all dependent on me getting enough donations for my London Marathon walk.
Oh, I see. Right. Yes, of course. He's very good.
Quick bit of shameless promotion then, Pip, before we shut the show.
Please. As you know, I'm doing this London Marathon walk to raise some money for the Thames Valley Air Ambulance. So go to my website, planesafetypodcast.com. Find the page. There's a big link in big blue flashing neon letters says donate here. Just click it and give me all your money.
And we'll put it in the show notes yet again. So also while we are talking about show notes, actually there's been a lot of interest in the chat room. Our little 9/11 tribute that we played earlier on, there's been a lot of interest in the chat room about that audio file being made available for people to listen to again. Jeff has very kindly said that is something that we're allowed to do, so I will make sure that audio file is available for people to listen to as soon as I can. But that is where we're going to bring episode number 182. 182. How did that happen? Come to a close. My thanks to Pip for joining us and playing a rather entertaining and still frankly mind-blowing game.
How long will this be next week?
Yeah, and how long will Carlos's beard be next week? Stay tuned next Friday for all the latest information from all of us here in the studio and in
Have a great weekend, everyone.
It's time to say goodbye. Say goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Woo.